Antrich und Ehre, war sich der noch angesäche. So bist du ihr aller Ehre. Was ist Wundes hier geschäche? Dass ein Magd ein Kind gebar, ihre über aller Engel schar. Was das nicht ein Wunder gab. Hier ließ sich reine taufen, dass der Mensch.
This is The New Right, a podcast for the lost arts, reclaiming the literary holy land from the heathen. This is Dan Baltic.
This is Matt Pegas.
And this is episode 32 of New Right. And we are very honored to have the good old boys on the pod to discuss the illustrious artist, actor, martial artist, indeed, Jean-Claude Van Damme and his movies. And we just to give a little intro in case our listeners are not familiar with you guys, though I'm sure many, if not most of them are. The good old boys, you guys have been, I think your pod started in like 2019, and it's on Patreon. It's on, you stream on Twitch once per week. And it's a politics and kind of culture roundup. And honestly, one of my favorite pods to listen to. I am a patron. And why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, we started the podcast in 2019, like you said, and the politics and culture thing is so, by this point, so overdone. But the thing that we really added was we don't enunciate. And we were the only people who had a podcast who didn't enunciate at the time. And I was,
Sure.
patreon.com/goodoldboys, So what do we, it's a podcast. So I think we are a mixed mode. So so every week there's a radio show that is basically, we treat it just like this is, the radio. Then there is just normal podcasts, etc. Also, must brag because we are on the New Right podcast. We are in the we've been named in the article that sort of declared the media declaring war on the New Right. We got on the list somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it was
radical
a Yarvin interview. I don't know. That's where I was introduced to you guys. Was your interview with Yarvin? Obviously, that article was kind of Yarvin focused. So maybe that's how I feel like it was. Like they just like looked at every pod Yarvin had gone on or something. Maybe.
Yeah.
You guys are definitely catching on your own outside of that sphere, though. Like you've been on Fed Post. You guys really are like getting around. And I think they slandered you as gamers, I believe.
Yeah, I heard a rumor from someone that knows someone that knows someone that knows someone that said the writer. I don't think they're like a big listener or whatever, but that they enjoyed listening, and so that I guess
you
that
could tell in that article. Like you could tell that like they're trying to be critical, but they actually liked a lot of the scene they were talking about, especially you guys, perhaps.
Now you said slandered as a gamer, but in the research that I did for this podcast episode, we find out in 1988's Bloodsport that Van Damme is a gamer. In the start of the movie, he destroys the nerds guy in the Kung Fu arcade game. So I'm just saying.
By the way,
he's a good gamer.
We would be so much. the gamers are like that is the elite compared to politics people. I mean, politics. If you talk about politics, you're in the gutter compared to gamer people. I mean, there are people like the amount of people that listen to stuff about politics is just super small compared to the amount of people that are interested in gaming stuff.
You burn out on politics. I think that's one of the reasons. Like Dan and I, we have political interests. We talk about politics on the show, but we never. I don't think either of us in a million years ever would have started a politics podcast. We started a literature podcast because it's always so much more interesting to get to the politics through something else as opposed to vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. You need like a take on politics to really make it work. And even then, every take is kind of done. Like you guys, like you have the Southern perspective. And like, I mean, crucially, like one of the things that I think makes your pod so great is you have each other and the rapport. And like, that is one of the things that like, I think really draws people to like any pod is like, you want to like feel like you're hanging out with people you like. And so like, yeah, like it's, you guys are doing a good job there.
Thanks. That's 100% true. I'm super thankful for that. So like we have like a cheat, like a hack. Cause I know a lot of people are, see, the thing is, in terms of like, I don't think anyone like would come listen to either of us lecture about politics. That is more of like the kind of people you get guests on and stuff, these professors and things like that. And so a lot of podcasts are people like that just like, they're good at lecturing about politics or whatever. And they just meet up and they're like, okay, let's do podcasts. But I think our advantage is, so me and Merrick, we've known each other for like a long time since we were little kids. So to me, it feels like being on easy mode when I hear about all the drama that goes on all these different podcasts and people stabbing each other back. Well, that's basically impossible for us. So there's, and also we can actually have arguments because I don't know if you've seen, so people, I'm not saying anything wrong about it, but people are like, if you're like a professor or something, or you write articles with a certain political view, and you get into like a debate or something, that brings on all these feelings. You must be like, if you lose the debate, people are like, wow, that guy's an idiot. He's not smart anymore. You're going to lose everything. I don't know if you've seen like all the drama that comes with like, all these bread tube debates and stuff. But like, we don't have like me and Merrick, I can say, you're an idiot. I don't agree with that at all. And there's no problem. So yes, it feels like we're playing on easy mode in that way.
I would say that for anybody thinking about doing a podcast about like politics or any kind of contentious issue, like you need to get somebody that you're legitimately friends with, because otherwise what he says is going to happen. You're going to have a disagreement. And if people are just a bunch of mercs who barely know each other, they're going to start throwing each other under the bus, and it's going to become
absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys, you make it look easy. So a little inside joke there for your listeners.
Yeah. I mean, the best example. So, like my whole thing is patronage, right? So I talk about this all the time. It's my favorite thing. We have episodes where Merrick's like, I think patronage is bullshit. We can do that. It's no problem. Yeah.
You mean like on Patreon patronage, or?
No, is the political concept of patronage. Basically, it's kind of like it's so what it's similar to, but the difference is more important. So you ever heard of people that are like follow the money? Yeah. Right. So the way to understand politics is find out who donated what to where. So instead of that, it's basically following relationships in this kind of feudal way, this kind of ancient Rome way and stuff like that. But yeah.
You can sum it up really easily for your listeners that the point of politics is to take things from your political enemies and give them to your political allies. That's it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Interesting.
Based and Clyburn build.
Yeah. Clyburn makes it easy. Plus, the Clyburn thing has come up lately because one of his big bases is this like the Gullah industrial complex. But yeah, Clyburn is like this old, he's like 1,000 years old. So he comes from an era when you didn't have to be, so like who are AOC's patrons and clients. I don't like, it's all very abstract.
Yeah, they're my neighbors. I live in New York.
whereas like when Clyburn signs a bill, he's like, I added this to this bill to give to you, and it makes it. I don't know. He just makes it easy.
Remember when Trump sent us all those checks that he put his name on it and signed it? That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. And very interesting that like obviously like patronage and Roman history and politics like are tied together, and like that's like a very like if you're gonna do a pod on patronage, like ancient Rome, like hell, everyone's talking about it right now. And I mean, it definitely provided grist for the mill with Yarvin.
Yeah, everybody's giving pill now.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I've seen all this so Roman stuff is it seems to be offering it's blowing up lately or whatever. I have always been just specifically obsessed with the story of Caesar. There's people that are serious classics, people that have heard our Caesar episodes that think that they're good. I think they're good. There's no reason why they wouldn't be. I've spent a zillion hours, and also I just really enchanted with the story of Julius Caesar. Yeah.
Not to be too controversial here, but like I love Caesar too, but like you're Scots Irish, I believe. He like when I'm reading about him, I'm like, fuck, this guy genocided my people.
Well, I mean,
here comes
like very attenuated indeed. We're talking about like 2,500 years ago. So
it's kind of interesting. So one of the funny things that he has this misadventure in England, would say. So he's like the first guy to cross the channel with an army. It doesn't really last long, but I mean, he just needed to like say he did it. What you can tell afterwards is that like, so the Roman army, he's got all these like local scouts and like all these auxiliary troops. There were people that were with him, like as his auxiliary troops that lived in England. And basically, they just didn't tell him. They're just like, "Oh, wow, we're going to go across the channel. Oh, this is spooky, mysterious." But they knew everything that was going on. These Celtic peoples were way more advanced than the Romans really understood.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm happy he let a few of them go, so we could be here. But yeah, no.
There's no point where he's like, I mean, so the deal when Caesar comes to town, especially that time, is he kind of offers a better deal to the locals, whether they're, I mean, in my opinion, but I think in most people's opinion, you can see how successful he was. Caesar, the Roman guy, comes to town, like he's offering to be your manager instead of whoever your tribal chief is. Most of these tribal chief arrangements weren't that great at the time. But yeah. I don't know. I don't really get into that. But
no, it's interesting stuff for sure.
I mean, also very interesting. I think not to like after this we get to Van Damme, but the Britons, not to get to like skull measury or whatever, but I think they were a different ethnic group than the Celts, right? The native inhabitants of the British Isles. I'm not sure they were, or if they were Celts, they were different than the Gauls.
Yeah, I don't really know. And to the Roman, there's basically Celts and Germans, and that's it. And now the only people he was like sort of openly, like he kind of talked shit about Germans a lot, but I mean in a way of like Germans were a real fear for Romans. They had not only, but of course Celts had showed up and did all kinds of raiding and stuff like that too. But Germans were a real fear for the Romans. Yeah.
You guys think the common mistake is the idea that the Romans built Hadrian's Wall to keep the Caledonians out, but the truth is they looked forward in time and saw that it would be important to build a wall to keep the Germans out of northern Great Britain. So
they knew what they were doing. Foresaw the migrations. Yeah, so maybe we launch into the Van Damme of it all. So yeah, we prior to this, I was listening to a Good Old Boys episode because I'm a patron and a regular listener. And I think, Bog, you mentioned that you wanted to do a Good Old Boys episode on Van Damme and his movies. And maybe it was like a casual aside and not serious, but I heard it and I was like, fuck yeah, we got to do a Good Old Boys Van Damme retrospective on New Right. And so that's where the damn good time with the Good Old Boys episode was born. And yeah, so Van Damme obviously is, you know, an 80s action hero. And so, you know, prior to this, we watched Bloodsport, which is probably his most famous movie. It's the movie, like when people think of Van Damme, there's a scene in your mind, it probably came from Bloodsport. We also, or at least some of us, watched Kickboxer and Double Impact. So we're all, you know, gassed up for Van Damme right now. Got a lot of that in us. And so we wanted to talk about, I guess, first off, action movies. This is the New Right. It is a right-wing culture podcast. We want to talk about how action movies are, or if they are inherently right-wing. Yeah. And my sense here is that action movies generally, like the premise has to involve the use of violence, of course, it's an action movie, and it's the use of violence to typically avenge or protect. And that is a culturally conservative instinct. This is not like, well, we better leave this to the state. We better, they, killed my parents, but they probably had bad childhoods. No, no. In an action movie, your parents get killed and you're like, well, now I'm the fucking Terminator and I gotta avenge them. And so, yeah, that's certainly these Van Damme movies follow that, plot line. But what do you guys think are action movies?
To skip ahead a little bit, but I think it all belongs in the same place. To an overarching theme, I think, to think about this kind of stuff would be being a violent person. We'll just say, just work with me here. Being violent is bad. Being an honorable person is good. Being an honorable violent person is best.
Yes.
So you can't opt out of violence altogether. This is why everyone at all times through all human history, you are sort of subject to the whims of the violent people, whoever that is. What is the government? The government is simply the biggest, most violent people on the block, and you pay them taxes. This is easier to see in more primitive situations. But I think that's a good place to start.
It's a gang. It's like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jack Donovan. I think I tweeted about him earlier today. Jack Donovan, he wrote The Way of Men. He's kind of right-wing social theorist of sorts.
Yeah, masculinist social theorist.
Masculine, yes. So his conception is that society is basically, it is inherently patriarchal, and its most basic unit of society is the gang. And in a sense, yeah, a government, viewed through this lens, and I think there's a lot of, validity in it. A government is really just an organized gang, a very well organized gang.
Or perhaps not so well organized anymore.
Or perhaps not so sclerotic, breaking down gang.
Now, the thing about this is like, this does not have anything to do with, like, at this point in the conversation, or in this point in like the morality of thing. This has nothing to do with like Aristotle thinking about like what is ideal, whatever. The reason why all the philosophy comes after, because at this point the reason why it has to be is because violence beats everything, right? So you can't, there's no other way about it. Like someone is going to be in charge, and they're going to be you get there through violence. So, whatever you do afterwards, like how, all these things like chivalry or police or governments, whatever you can do to philosophize, that comes after. What you must accept is that violence beats everything.
Right.
Absolutely. It's before, I mean, it's like the Jordan Peterson thing, like before you can be a good man, you have to be able to be a monster. And like, exactly, like if you're turning the other cheek out of cowardice, well, that's not really turning the other cheek, is it? So
yeah, no, exactly. And it goes back to themes that from our early episodes, Dan, we used to bring up that Jordan Peterson quote that you have to be a monster before you can be a good man. And even the Mike Ma episode, I just listened to I don't know if you guys are Mike Ma fans, or I'm sure he's on your radar in some capacity, but we did our first episode about harassment architecture and Gothic violence, especially perhaps Gothic violence, because when it came out last summer, that's around the time we were starting up. And I just listened to the audiobook version of that, and I was kind of reminded of the parts where he gets into like, basically the violent people always win. The people who are willing to use force and use violence and even at times, be unfair and use trickery, that always is going to, the people who are willing to do that will always win out in any, kind of primal, not even, or any situation of conflict, basically. So that, now the position that we're in is, you have people appeal to socially conservative values or civility. But they are the theory being that in the long run, they are always going to lose out to whomever comes in and is willing to bend the rules, use force, take what they want.
Yeah. So we have this episode called Philosophy versus Hot Lead, which is.
Oh, I love that one.
Thanks. I listened to it back. I don't recommend it because I went and listened to it back. I was like, God, this is before we got our audio in shape. But
DIY.
And this is kind of like the idea of this. And when you ask people directly about the like what this kind of thing would mean, and we certainly did. I don't know where I got that idea. That's just kind of like the ideas in there are kind of things that are, I don't know, things we would say common sense or whatever. But the idea, but it would be radical to politics people, because a lot of hay is made about the French Revolution. There's 100 million books about, is it class warfare, and is it this or that or Christianity, etc. Where like more than likely the only thing that is the French Revolution happened because of innovation and violence, because there's this gunpowder got mixed with this kind of like industrial process to make a tube that we call a gun, and now there's a reality that just almost any 18 to 25-year-old can deliver a lot of violence. And so now that like the class system will change, it just will. Like it doesn't matter what books you write or what you or these ridiculous costumes of these great kings or whatever. I love all this monarchy stuff, but the fact is, like you're not up there. You're not this great king anymore once the gun enters the world.
That's fascinating.
Absolutely.
It's almost like, and sounds reductive, but it's almost like the French Revolution happened because it could. It's like once, Wow.
Well, so the system that the French Revolution overthrew came about the same way. The reason why you had these great nobles or whatever is because the feudalism happened because the Roman Empire falls. People need protection, etc. If you read Nietzsche or whatever, the things that he likes the most, the period of history that he likes the most, is basically the same thing but reverse. The period of time he likes is when they're basically plate metal armor gets to this level where a knight can be like a Superman. Like he could.
The French
fight.
Revolution happened like 300 years after the introduction of the firearm. What are you talking about here?
Okay, but you have like all these different technologies coming together to produce it on a mass scale.
I think we also mass mobilization became possible around the era of the French Revolution. Prior to that, you had smaller kind of ragtag armies but like it was right, like Napoleon's army was the first like, you know, mass mobilization. And then it was just like they just beat everyone because it's like, oh yeah, well, we're gonna make everyone fight. And it's like, well, we never thought of this.
If you were trying to look for a monocausal reason for the French Revolution, it wouldn't be gunpowder, it would be the printing press, because the French Revolution is the beginning of
hard
mass
disagree.
society.
Hard disagree. Like I totally disagree. So when you're like what makes you a knight is gone once you have lots and lots of guns. It just is.
It had been gone for hundreds of years by the time the French Revolution actually happens.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. It's a breaking point, and I think that's what it was. I can't remember exactly. I have to go back. It wasn't rifling and stuff, but either way, like it was some. I believe that it was just purely technological advances and violence. But let's just keep moving. Or sorry. Delete that part if you do.
No,
it's all
good.
So,
it's strange.
I think it's a combination of the two, right?
Yeah,
technological advances plus this new ideology that prizes, you know, like, oh yeah, no, king shouldn't tell you what to do. We all have, you know, rights that we're born with, and you know, so you should listen to the emperor.
Right. Well, now
the Sun King was like he's like the model of the absolute monarch, right? Like the peak of like towards the end of his reign, when he's in trouble, he basically had to beg the French people, the peasants, for help in the war, his last wars he was fighting. Like that by itself changed the game a lot. And by the way, they did. People donated their money to the royal coffers, and people enlisted, whatever, signed up to fight in this war. And that was a kind of new phenomenon for absolute monarchy. Like if you really wanted to, like I would say, we're getting too far afield. Like nationalism, the 30 Years' War, all these things had a lot more to do with the French Revolution and modern society than gunpowder. Like all the changes that gunpowder wrought had already been factored in by the time of the French Revolution.
Yeah, so maybe a sufficient but not necessary, or a necessary but not sufficient cause, right? Like without guns, you know, this wouldn't have happened, but like it needed an extra push. It needed the ideology. It needed the kind of ferment in the classes, et cetera,
right,
et cetera.
Right. There's a chicken and egg thing, and also there's matters of degrees, because this kind of thing was contemplated and maybe could have happened under the crossbow. The crossbow sort of did the same thing, where like suddenly, like what it's about is like like a 19-year-old male is a different thing with a crossbow than with crossbows available than when he's not. Yeah. Now with a gun, it's even more. But it's there. But let's. Going back to are these movies naturally right wing? So one thing that's funny to just start out with, Bloodsport is in fact Donald Trump's favorite movie.
Damn it!
Really?
Love it. Oh wait, I've heard that like he watches it and fast forwards to the fights, which is like really valid. Like that's the best part of the movie. So
son of a bitch, you beat me to it. I have the quote here. There was an article somebody wrote in, I don't know, the Times or whatever, when they traveled
I don't have
with
the
them.
quote.
In the late 90s, somebody took a flight with him talking about whatever you talk about Donald Trump in 1997, and he said he's on the plane and he's watching the John Travolta movie Michael, which had just come out. And he says within 20 minutes Trump gets bored and he gets his son Eric Trump to bring the copy of Bloodsport on VHS and put it in, and then Donald Trump orders his son to fast forward through all the dialogue and only watch quote, get this 2-hour movie down to 45 minutes where he watches nothing but the fighting. And then it's funny because the guy who wrote the article, he's a reporter, you can imagine what kind of guy he is. And he said he laughed at the scene when Van Damme nut punches the giant guy. And Trump goes, admit it, you're laughing. You want to write that Donald Trump was loving this ridiculous Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, but are you willing to put in there that you were loving it too? End quote.
Oh, that's a great line.
It is a great. I had no concept of that. I'm almost glad I didn't, because I would have gone in like, oh, this is Trump's favorite movie. But I watched it without that. But now knowing that, very, very, very interesting, and it makes sense. The kind of the '80s thing and the,
Oh yeah, like this
thing.
was like, he's an '80s guy. This was one of the movies in the '80s for guys, and like. I think this is a really good point with the nut punch thing to move on to honor, because I mean that's
by the way, that nut punch gave birth to Johnny Cage.
Oh yeah. That's right.
That's all it took to create Johnny Cage. Yeah.
So despite Bog Beef constantly talking about it, I had never seen this movie. I had never seen Kickboxer. I thought I had seen Double Impact, but I hadn't. I had seen Time Cop, because inexplicably there are 2 Jean-Claude Van Damme movies where he teams up with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So I saw all these movies for the first time, like after you guys contacted me.
I'm jealous. I wish I could
3?
watch them for the
There's
first time.
One?
I think so. One thing I just tell people just straight, like before anything else with the Van Damme thing, just accept, and it's okay that Bloodsport is going to be bigger and better than like everything else. That doesn't mean that like the other stuff isn't good too. It's kind of, with kung fu movies, you have the same thing with Enter the Dragon, but Bloodsport is just really towers over everything, and that's okay. Like you're still gonna be able to enjoy the other movies, but just tell people straight up, like nothing is gonna be as good as Bloodsport.
Well, I mean, Double Impact is shot better than Bloodsport by a long shot. Like it's not a better movie.
Like it's a technically better movie, but like it's not a better movie. That would be my take. Bloodsport is more fun.
Yeah, but like Donald Trump had to write about Bloodsport. You need to just fast forward through all the dialogue. Just watch Jean-Claude Van Damme and Bola Young? How do you pronounce his name?
Bola Young. Yeah.
Which one's Bola Young?
He's the guy who's like a cartoon
Chinese
character.
Guy with the
right.
big packs.
Yeah. Chinese Achilles. Yeah, the Chinese Goliath, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing of that, one of the reasons why you can't really replicate so the Bloodsport is really important in a way that's like kind of bizarre, kind of like like the Matrix or whatever. The Matrix just had a massive influence on culture, etc. People are still talking about red pills and all this kind of shit. Bloodsport, same way. So later on, Jean-Claude Van Damme is playing Guile in Street Fighter. Street Fighter does not happen without in the same way as without Bloodsport. Bloodsport has just a huge impact on American culture, and there's so many things from it.
Absolutely, and it plays into, to get back to the nut punch of it all. It plays into the 80s kind of sensibility of we're the good guys. We play by the rules. Well, okay, maybe not with that nut punch, but in general, they there's a real distinction between the guys in Bloodsport, Van Damme, and even Jackson, who play by the rules, fight honorably, and then Chang Li, his antagonist, the Chinese Goliath, who at the end, sorry guys, we got to do spoilers. At the end, throws a blinding agent in Van Damme's face. And and generally just is, he's not playing fair and square. And that's an interesting, it builds off of what we just said, right? Where, first you have to be good at being a man. So first you have to be good at fighting. That's the only way you get into the Kumite. You have to be good at being a man. And then fighting is being a man in many senses. And after that, then character becomes more of an issue, I think. And in a very kind of heavy-handed way, they demonstrate it. If you're going to throw blinding agents in, the eyes of the guy who you're supposed to be fighting fair and square, that's not honorable. But going off of a recent pod that you guys did, I think Marek, or maybe it was you, Bob, you quoted someone who said, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And to a certain extent, how much is cheating dishonorable? And if not, okay, yes, it is dishonorable, but is it unmanly? I think that's an interesting question.
It is.
So
by the way, so this is outside this. Another thing to just set up the importance of things we're talking about. UFC did $900 billion last year, and there is no UFC without Bloodsport. There's
True.
no UFC without Bloodsport.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So the quote about if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying was from the NFL. I think it was from a Raiders player. Like that when that guy was talking about cheating, he's talking about like, are you playing dirty? Are you punching somebody in the kidneys at the bottom of the pile? Or if you're playing basketball, you're throwing elbows and stepping on people. Like I heard one time, I don't know if it's true or not, when 90s basketball players were polled asking who the dirtiest player in the NBA was, a lot of them said John Stockton. I don't know if you guys are basketball fans, but he was like a 6'1".
I know who Stockton is, yeah.
Yeah, 6'1", nice little Catholic boy. His deal was he played in the NBA for 20 years and just played at a really high level the whole time. And they said, he seemed like a nice guy, but, when the refs weren't looking, he'd be, you catch elbows from him in the ribs and stuff like that. That to me, that's what, like, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying means. Like, what like Bolo does at the end of Bloodsport. Here's the difference. Okay, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Bolo are both powerful in the movie, extremely powerful, but morally Bolo's weak, and you can cut up at the end because he's given up on trying to beat Jean-Claude Van Damme. His strength, his strength, so he just has to. He's scared, so he's trying to protect his pride by doing something like there's no way you can say that throwing somebody's eyes is honorable. Like even by the rules of the Kumite or whatever, that would be illegal. So punching somebody in the nuts, I don't think that's illegal in the Kumite, right? It's full
True.
contact.
No, you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the difference. Like morally, one is strong and one is weak, and that's in all of Van Damme's movies. That like it seems to come back to that. Like it's not that he's the strongest guy physically, although he is also that. He's the strongest guy morally.
The one thing to go back to, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I had always heard of this in terms from NASCAR, and I looked it up, and the oldest I can find that anyone said it is Richard Petty.
Hell yeah!
Who won a lot. Cheating in motorsports is I mean, it's just really, really common. They did some funny stuff, but I mean, so I'm one of the things I talk about all the time is kind of these Machiavellian stuff. So I think you have a duty to cheat, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it just goes down to the object of the goal of things. If you in terms of politics or whatever, being honorable as a politician to me is dishonorable because your personal honor means nothing. You aren't like you should. It's like being an attorney. An attorney should use every dirty trick in the book because why? Because it's not really you. You are an instrument that
right.
which other people work through, or these other people that are depending on you. You do dirty things on their behalf. That makes you even better, in my opinion. You take the fall on behalf of your people. Now it depends on what your goal is. It depends on what you're trying to do. Most big fights and stuff like that. By the way, I brought up the UFC did 900 million, $900 billion.
Well, billion? Are you sure? That's a lot.
UFC is believed to compromise the lion's share of the owned sports properties segment, with some estimates of 2021 revenues in the $900 billion range. So, most fights, by the way, the money is set up beforehand. I mean, so it just depends on what you're trying to do. If Michael Jordan or if an athlete cheats to win the Super Bowl or something, I mean, the end game is kind of like the actual game or whatever. If you are punching people in the nuts at a pickup game, at the YMCA, then you're effing up.
Jean-Claude Van Damme is not Machiavellian, by the way. He's the opposite of that. Like, he would BTFO you for what you're saying. Like, the whole point of honorable conduct is like, what would happen if everybody behaved this way? If everybody decided they weren't trying, if they weren't cheating? Well, every match in the Kumite starts with some guy going pocket sand and just like throwing shit to the side. It would be bad. Like nobody would want to participate in that or watch it. It would be a horrible movie. Like that's what Van Damme suffers in the movie, because he won't do that. Like that's the lesson. So like,
okay, but the lesson I think people should take is that things like sports and stuff are different than real things. You like one thing. So if you look at every military in the world, basically everything that people look up to in the military, the Navy SEALs, the Mongols, all this stuff, like 100% of it, the people that do the greatest in military history. So what do the SEALs do? They sneak around. What did the Mongols do? The Mongol special technique was running away. They had some special way. They ran away and they still shot you. 100 there's no prizes for like good conduct in or this kind of like good sportsmanship in real conflict. In real conflict, you need to win, and you need to suck up that you're going to have to do things that are uncomfortable, etc. Or you'll have to do things that are dishonorable. Like you would never say like feeding the enemy wrong intelligence is this like. If this was a game, if this was sports, and you have the West has intercepted 100% of the Wehrmacht's communications, the Enigma machine, that would be very dishonorable. You're cheating. You're finding out what their plans are ahead of time, but it's not cheating in real conflict.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you might call an inconvenient truth for someone with quote unquote socially conservative values, because a lot of people who have what would be considered, conservative values, maybe, you want to value both power and the military, but also honor and nobility and all these other virtues. But it's an inconvenient truth, as you're saying, Bog, that basically in the real world, people who are willing to fight dirty and willing to cut corners, cheat, etc., do end up getting ahead. So I think it's just a tension and a conflict for people who are, again, on the right side of the aisle or conservative, to kind of reconcile one fact, holding to things that most of us agree are good and fine, honor, nobility, codes of conduct, while also recognizing that the reality and the reality of war and just reality in general is much more chaotic than that. And it's something that you have to adjust to and cope with. I see that a lot of people sort of in our sphere, more so than like mainstream conservatism, I think are better able to sort of deal with that kind of issue. People like BAP and even some of the old manosphere guys are very much enmeshed in that way of thinking, where it's like, yes, you might value more traditional values, but at the same time, like, you have to be red pilled about just the way things work and what's going to get you ahead. Even like some of the PUA guys with the way women are and stuff. It's a lot of it is kind of being willing to grapple with the sort of darker underbelly of things.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. I say this is the way you get ahead. You guys both said that. Well, yeah, that is the way you get ahead in Machiavelli's world. That's the way you get ahead in the world of the foxes. But eventually, the time of the foxes end, and the lions come back. And that's like this. Like if we're adhering to the the structure of this show or whatever, like Van Damme's not a fox in any of his roles, right? He is unabashedly a lion. He wears his heart on his sleeves. Exactly what he says is what he's going to do. And in the movie, especially in like the two worst movies, Kickboxer and Double Impact, like he's going against people who aren't direct and powerful people like Bolo in Bloodsport. Like in Double Impact, it's like this weird Hong Kong British cabal of I guess are they real estate guys or whatever? And
Yeah, like
the
gangsters, basically.
The problem with this is like, yeah, this is how you get ahead until it's not how you get ahead anymore. And like, if I really strongly dislike these people who lay out these takes about like how well you really need to take the pill on behaving like underhandedly and doing all this stuff, and actually the values that the real way to protect these values you care about is to subvert them. No, it's not. That's more Fox bullshit, right? It's ultimately.
Okay. Well, okay. So all right. So you've seen so you guys brought up the fact that this was not a traditionally a view of the right, and it was more of this dissident right stuff. Well, now I don't know if you guys seen Chris Rufo in particular. He leaked some like a paper of his, but more of just in general. Chris Rufo has definitely adopted the Fox technique. Yes.
I would say so to an extent, but like I don't think he's really not calling it the way it is.
Yeah.
Like not to get us, canceled or whatever, but I don't think they can cancel
that,
it, right?
That latest thing that just came out, he's pointing to the stands like Babe Ruth and the college, like, we're going to come in with a sword and just rip apart the bureaucracy and replace them with our people. That's not like Machiavellian. That's not,
you have to give something on this, because he's said that we need to weasel words and stuff, and other right wing people said, I don't know if you can if you can do this. This might be too far. People said he's an Alinsky Republican. You have to give me something on this. There's some.
No, that's true.
Between
that's true. Like,
and
I think there's the distinction or the kind of low-key debate he's had with Andrew Sullivan, where Andrew Sullivan is like, well, not all of them are groomers, and he's like, well, I guess, but many of them are. So, in the interests of like actually advancing our goals, I don't think we need to, be super whatever. And I wouldn't say that's being like underhanded exactly. It's just like it's pointing to like there is like a large segment of this coalition that has certain I think unnatural or immoral ideas, and like I'm just calling them on it. And like, okay, if that's like painting things with a broad brush, like, well, by how else are you supposed to communicate, really? Mm-hmm. So.
Merrick, do you think a Marine Corps sniper, is that a fox or a lion?
He's a guy in war shooting people and being shot at.
Yes. Is he a lion or is he a fox?
Yeah, he's a lion.
Okay, well then we must have a definition thing here, because what defines a sniper? A sniper is a guy who hides. He's hiding, right? He's not coming out and saying, I'm here, come and get me. He hides in the dirt for days at a time to get a sneaky bullshit shot on an officer. I mean, whatever we call that, that's what I'm for.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like in war, that's a very different, Like, of course, I think, and we even made the distinction here, like there's a difference between the rules in the Kumite and the rules in like, the stakes are important, right? So like, yes, of course, in war, you have to do absolutely everything because the stakes are everything. But like, if the point of the sport or whatever is to, to demonstrate mastery of the sport, well, you're just you're just cheating for the stakes are not high enough to warrant being dishonorable. That would be
absolutely. If you cheat to win a sports contest, which by the way, so I admire Michael Jordan, but if you go look up what they call his last shot, which was his last shot before his first retirement,
the push off.
Yeah, he's cheating more or less. He shoves the guy down. So that doesn't really do anything. I don't, maybe they make more money if they win than if they lose, but not really. So yeah, it matters. It matters what you're on behalf of. So, Merrick, what if can a law be unrighteous and you don't follow, you say, well, fuck that law, I don't care about that law, is not righteous?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so we just have a definition problem here. I'm not telling anybody to kill somebody in the third round of the Kumite. I'm saying that you have to win, especially, these conservatives. If you say that you're fighting on behalf against infanticide, well, I would say you should grant yourself license to do what needs to be done. Sorry, good.
But in that example, and like the Rufo example is, he says, what we're going to do is we're going to get a president elected, and he's going to replace the people who work for the executive branch with better people. That's not like a scheme. It's not like that is literally how it's supposed to work. Or an example of Roe. Okay, they had an election. The guy won. He appointed justices who overturned the decision. That's not that's not sneaky or anything. That's exactly how, that's playing the game by the rules.
Okay, I didn't mean that stuff so much as this other stuff. This Alinsky, this other stuff he's done and talked about, where he's like, we need to change the words that people use. Like he was talking about calling people groomers and stuff like that. I mean, I don't like it. To me,
if you don't think they're groomers, then yes, that is underhanded. But
I think the issue would be how the Andrew Sullivan point is well, they're not all groomers, and it's well, fuck you. It's at a certain point, there's only so much deference you need to pay to your political enemies. If the glove fits. The glove fits.
It's not like it. We're not accusing somebody falsely of being a groomer. This is a movement for groomers. I mean, it's calling it like you see it.
Okay. Yeah. Imagine you're the Roman army. You've been sent. Your scouts have reported that the Germans are on the march towards Rome. You're sent out. You and the rest of the men of Rome are going to meet them. And the women and children will be in Rome waiting, whatever fate comes. If you lose, do you know what's going to happen to them? What rules at this point do you need to obey? What things are out of bounds at that point?
Okay, here's the whole problem with this concept. The period in our history that we're talking about, where there were rules of war and there was civility in war. That's because that there were people in charge of every nation in Europe who had said okay, we're going to go this far and we're not going to go any farther. Nobody's going to roll through your lands and rape your women and enslave your children. We're not going to do that. If you lose a war, you're going to lose Silesia, or you're going to lose a portion of Denmark. So everybody said, okay, it's better for us to just have these rules and abide by them. In the Roman era, this doesn't exist. There are no rules of war. There's nothing. You're not breaking any conventions. You're not behaving dishonor. Meeting somebody on the field and killing them is the very essence of honor. It does if you use, I don't know, psyops or whatever. That doesn't matter. That's part of the deal. That's the norm that you're living under.
And similarly, that's all I'm asking for. In society today, maybe in the 50s or the 60s are kind of an interesting issue, but there were rules to politics. There were rules to federalism and what have you, and obviously, Roosevelt. That's different. I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot here, but my point is today very much the pedal is to the metal, and if people think the culture war is something that is the blue Caesar is going to respect your millets, your self-government, no, it's not going to happen. Every
war under liberalism with liberals is a war, as a fight to the death, and it always has been. And I'm not making a political statement here. It's this has been learned over and over again by nations that were not considered liberal when they fought against nations that were liberal. Like you would find out in the end there are no rules. It's total war to the death. And it took hundreds of years for people to figure this out. And like, so in that sense, like if we're talking about, is it wrong for you to fight the enemy on their terms rather than the terms that you would have fought King George 200 years ago? Well, no, that's ridiculous. Nobody in the world believes that. What is it wrong to fight the war not under the terms like okay, for example, here's a great example. Even liberals in war don't use chemical weapons for. Well, we'll put a pin in that one. Maybe the CIA does, but like the two armies against each other, they don't use chemical weapons. Is it wrong today to use chemical weapons? Yeah, because you're reaching into Pandora's box for not really a good reason. Because what happens then? Everybody starts using them. It leads to mass suffering. No one really gains from it. Like this is the whole point of honor. Like this is the whole point of the thing that we're talking about, like honor. It's not that you're displaying that you're superior. Like I'm stronger than you, so I'm gonna be nice and behave honorably. It's what would happen if everyone stopped behaving this way? Would it be better? Or would it be worse?
Exactly. It's a friend of the pod, TR Hudson. He said something to the effect of honor is currency between men. And it's kind of respect that you pay other men of equal standing. And it's how you coordinate your affairs so that you don't just all kill each other and steal each other's shit. And on a societal level, that is kind of what it is. If you live in an honorable society, property rights are respected. You're able to, freely associate, stuff of that nature, which, and if you live in a dishonorable society, maybe, your rights are not as well respected. And I think we have a sense of what society we're living in.
Yeah. I mean, I guess where the inconvenient truth notion slips in, not that I'm saying anything especially profound here, but it's the risk. It's not so, I don't know. I think the nuance to some of this in terms of practical advice and practical thinking about it in terms of politics isn't so much, you need to be willing to do the dirty stuff and hit below the belt, as much as you just have to be prepared for the fact that someone out there is going to. I think that's the important red pill. That's the important thing to be aware of, I guess, is that human nature is such that someone out there somewhere there's always a risk. This is always at the door that someone is going to, do the bad thing. So whether or not, the really hard, I guess, quasi Machiavellian school of thought, or I don't know, no need to bring Machiavelli into it, would be you have to, strike, it's the Cobra Kai of it all, which, that's like a modern, probably we're talking about Van Damme, there probably wouldn't be this modern Cobra Kai show without that stuff either. But strike first, strike hard, blah blah blah. You don't necessarily have to believe that. It's just you can't be naive about the fact that there are bad agents out there, essentially.
Well, let's if we're talking about Bloodsport, the the beginning of the movie, there were people in it who. Some of them didn't seem to be able to speak English, and none of them were able to act. So it's kind of hard to piece together the beginning of Bloodsport, like what exactly is happening. But the gist of it is that Jean-Claude Van Damme's adoptive father is sick and dying, and he has to take up the mantle of the clan and in honorable combat win the Kumite and prove that their way is the best way. So if he cheats the way that Bolo does, it doesn't prove anything. There's nothing's gained from it. You've falsely won a competition. You didn't prove that you were better. And at the end of the movie, it was really interesting. I thought he was going to kill Bolo, because that's kind of how these movies would play out today. But he doesn't. He makes them submit to him, which is like a fate way worse than death for somebody like Bolo.
So I would just say, so we probably have just a definitions problem here. I think of Caesar a lot. So Caesar was definitely a guy that pushed every angle but he was also extremely honorable in a way of not like in this more important way of honor is like a record of how you behave and people and it changes how people behave around you. In other words, you can get out of a lot of fights if you're an honorable person because people will give up knowing that you won't take advantage of them. That's a way. That's one of these things where you're building up equity in yourself by treating people honorably. However, anything that's like we would consider like I don't know, intelligence warfare or whatever. Caesar is using every kind of spy, everything like that under his name. So let's say that honor is generally a great thing. There are dirty versions of this. There are versions of this where people say, we just had to do the right thing, and what it really amounts to. So some of the worst excesses of the knights in the Middle Ages was when their code of honor became basically just a criminal conspiracy, where they're basically almost fighting fake battles. They're ransoming each other in fake ways. There is a point where honor becomes basically an elite conspiracy. When your politicians will not do what they need to do on your behalf, and they say, well, we can't break the rules, we can't go past the this or that, then that's not honor anymore. That is a conspiracy.
Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting part here is the extent to which honor, to what extent does honor demand that you are merciful, or at least not like wantonly violent? And like Chang Li, he kills someone in the ring for no good reason. He'd already won. He stomps on Jackson's neck, and somehow like Jackson, because he's like a big strong American, is fine, but like not super fine. He did have to go to the hospital. Tang Po, of course, paralyzes his brother, Van Damme's brother, and like in general, and of course the gangsters are wantonly killing people, and it raises an interesting question, which is, it's not exactly unmanly to be bloodthirsty. It's not unmanly to, want to smite your enemies to the utmost, but like it is dishonorable to strike a fallen opponent. And also it's kind of, I think, frankly, it depends on the context, right? Like if you're in the field of battle, then of course there's a goal to taking the other person off the field. If you're in the kumite, like, well, you're not even supposed to really do that. And if you do, it's just kind of for some kind of sick indulgence. And like, that's, not only is it not honorable, I think it probably speaks to, some form of mental illness.
Mm. I would say that it is actually unmanly to be bloodthirsty and cruel in the Christian context, which is the context that we all live in. Like the great movie quote from Conan is that, they ask him, what's best in life? And he says, you kill your enemies, to drive them before you, to hear them, like, to murder everybody who's against you, steal all their stuff, and rape their women. But if in the Conan movie, he doesn't do any of those things. You don't ever see Conan behave that way. You see Conan the entire time behaving like a knight. He's avenging his father. And at the end of the movie, you see this hypothetical world where Conan becomes like a philosopher. So it's like, now the Conan quote would have made sense coming from Genghis Khan, and like we enjoy those kind of characters because like they're or Vikings or whatever, because it's fun to have this almost boogeyman figure, but like in the context of the way we see things, it is unmanly. It's bestial. So. It's not effeminate or weak, but it's not becoming of a man.
That's a very good point. It's not that it's effeminate. But it's that it's bestial. It's that it's not manly in the sense that it doesn't befit the like moral whatever of a man. And I remember in college reading the Iliad, and that was like a real red pill moment for me, because I'm like, wow, these people, they have a very different sense of right and wrong than we do, when they're like butchering sleeping opponents and like, just generally doing things that, we would regard as dishonorable.
Well, there's go on, Dan. Sorry.
No.
There's I've brought this up in the pod before. One of the Jack Donovan quotes that for me was like, oh wow, that's really something. It goes back to he talks about how basically what we're talking about now, like you see sort of feel good quotes like a real man doesn't hit women or whatever, which I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that, but you see these quotes that real men are honorable, et cetera, and Jack Donovan says, like, do you really think that the characters in The Godfather are less masculine for doing dirty things and killing? And his answer is, of course, no. And I think it's we talk about like definitional issues here. It's like masculinity and honor. They're kind of they're different metrics. It depends a little bit how you define masculinity. Obviously, few people define masculinity as pure brutality, but there's some connection there to that kind of energy and masculinity. But a lot of people would probably define, and this is, I think, a very common sense and very good definition of they would have some definition of masculinity which combines that violence with it being channeled in the proper manner, it being channeled in a civilized manner. But I think the issue arises when some people would like to completely eschew the violence and instead focus solely on the civilization of it all. And that's where you get people saying like, that's where you get an idea like that, someone turns the other cheek out of fear and they want to call that masculine. No, it's like you have to, it's that balance between the violence of masculinity, which is, part and parcel of the broader violence that we talked about at the beginning, the violence of society and the violence inherent to, governmental structure. That has to be recognized, affirmed, etc. And with that affirmed, other values, the values of civilization, the values of honor, and that's how we call it, the proper channeling of that energy. As long as it's an acknowledgement of the the energetic source of things. Not to get too abstract here, but does that make sense?
The only thing I disagree with there is I don't agree with going along with their branding, which is like we're talking about the more civilized option. Like civilization itself is just, as my colleague was like, it's a conspiracy for everybody to pool their resources so that they can do violence on the scale that's much larger than anybody else. Like,
sure.
It's like,
yeah.
I love that like the word civility has been so completely can I say paused on the podcast? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, for
totally.
sure.
It's been paused to mean almost the opposite of like if you told like a Roman citizen what like the definition of civility is, he would laugh. Like we were super polite in the South in the antebellum days, but that's not because like out of some kind of obligation to be nice. It was because everybody carried a fucking gun, and if you said the wrong thing, they could challenge you to a fight. Like so I don't. It's you alluded to it earlier. It's like it's cowardice that's disguising itself as being magnanimous, and then there's nothing worse than that.
Yeah, and
it's hypocrisy and lying too.
That is what the modern like urban liberal male is. He has this, and not to get too much on my soapbox and like shit on my peers, but obviously this is a right wing cultural podcast. Occasionally we're going to do that. That's the whole thing. The modern preachy liberal male who's a vegan, whatever. Obviously, I'm dealing in cliches here, but they're cliches, stereotypes based in reality. It's that basically weak men preaching their weakness as morality and as values. When in reality, it's just because that is all they've ever known, that's all they're capable of, and so it's preached as virtue.
So
absolutely.
So I do think being unmerciful is feminine, almost specifically feminine. You can look at and see. By the way, I don't know when this came up exactly, but Jesus said, if you don't have a sword, sell the shirt on your back and buy a sword, because and then like he continues on and saying like there will be an end to my plan, and you will need to be armed. But so this I don't know if you can watch it, the Democratic Party, the way they deal whenever they have rivals or internal conflict. There's just extremely vindictive. There's zero mercy. So Caesar is perhaps the greatest general in world history. He was also extremely merciful. Why? Like what is this? What is this thing of mercy, and like why is it so? So in general, mercy allows. So you cannot dominate someone without mercy. You can kill them, you can waste them, you can, Rome spends the rest of its years sort of lamenting. They knew the great sin they had committed to the, what's Hannibal's nation?
Carthage.
To Carthage. That was wrong. What, when you dominate someone, when you give mercy to them, now you can utilize them. You can become a team. It's always worse to destroy, and you're better off forgiving people. It requires more strength to forgive people, be merciful. It's been proven even mathematically. I don't know if you've seen, they have these competitions for mathematicians on how to win, to come up with an algorithm that wins the prisoner's dilemma. Being merciful, but also basically being confrontational, being like violent but merciful is the way to win. This is just like the ideal way to go if you can. And we see the worst political movements are always the ones that are the worst movements in history. Are always this vindictive, unmerciful, etc.
No, I believe it. I think there's a lot of nuance to it. But go on. Sorry, continue.
I'll just quickly add, there was this great quote. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was like Schopenhauer. It was one of these like more modern philosophers, and he said that like the role of like the patriarch is to limit the intense family patriotism of women, because like that they're actually the vengeful and merciful ones. And he goes, if you don't believe me in this passage, just imagine that your dog attacked the neighbor's dog. Would you rather deal with the man of the house or the lady of the house? If that
right.
It's very true.
I feel like that might be a C.S. Lewis quote, or maybe C.S. Lewis was quoting someone else. I think it's in Mere Christianity.
Yeah, we should just like so what I'm saying here is not misogynistic. We should just accept women for what they are. But let's be real. So everyone, there's seen all these studies where women consider like men who don't reach a certain standard is like not people, basically.
That's obviously according to the internet accepted. It's true. You see that. You hear women talk about it. It's accepting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There's another story. This is not my story, but a guy the family has a cat. The guy doesn't really like the cat. His wife treats it like a child. Then she has the real child. The cat takes a swipe at the child's face. She comes to the husband. This is a true story. Says just immediately the day after, says, "Go have this cat put down."
Yeah.
And the guy that never liked the cat really much to begin with says, "I can't do that. We've lived with this cat for 6 or 7 years. We can't just kill it. I'm gonna give this to my parents or something." The woman says, "No, just kill it. Just kill it now."
That's the essence of motherhood. It's the most important thing in the world that they feel that way. My mother almost got into a fist fight with a woman in McDonald's because like she said something to me. The woman said something to me when I was a kid, and my mother was like, "Step outside right now. We're gonna have a fist fight." It's like it's insane overreaction, but like for a mother, that's
your mom would have put that woman in McDonald's in a gas chamber.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like at the end of the day, well, it comes down. So in terms of whether or not mercy is masculine, whether or not mercy is strong, I think it comes down to that dichotomy. It's like whether or not are you showing mercy because you can't stomach going through with whatever violent action may or may not need to be taken? Or are you showing mercy because you are choosing to show mercy? If you're choosing to show mercy in the way that Van Damme, as silly as it is, but in the way that Van Damme ultimately makes what's his bucket, Chong Li, submit as opposed to killing him, that is masculine. If it's a question of like you can't stomach it, that is less so. So it's context dependent, and it depends. Is it deontological? I don't know, but by the way,
being in charge is basically having everyone else around in the state of your mercy.
Completely. Yeah. And it's like in terms of the women versus men question, like if your lack of showing mercy it's when it becomes specifically feminine. If your inability to show mercy comes down to a lack of control of emotion, that is not masculine, and we might even call it feminine. And that is the mother beating the shit out of the woman at McDonald's for saying something bad, whatever the case was.
Right.
I mean, also it's beta, right? Like beta men can't control their emotion. Alpha men are, they're confident and assured.
Yeah.
So they know that, like, I don't need to wail on this guy on the ground to prove that I'm a man because I already won. I am a man.
Yeah, like I'm gonna be super Reddit and like that. Maybe I should. It's almost too Reddit to even say, but like in Star Wars Episode 2, when Anakin like kills all those Tusken Raiders or whatever, like that's not exactly masculine. He seems completely, absorbed with his emotions, and I don't know if it's feminine, but it's kind of beta. It's not. It doesn't read as manly. It reads as something else. Yeah.
So let's talk about a better film. You guys seen The Gangs of New York, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm not.
So in the movie, Liam Neeson is at the start as the head of the Irish gang, and he defeats the head of the Bowery Boys gang, Daniel Day-Lewis, and he doesn't kill him. He looks at him and lets him know, like, yeah, what happened to Bolo, and like if you're not absolutely confident about your ability to protect yourself, do whatever, like you're going to want to destroy all your enemies because like that's somebody who can come back and defeat me someday. But if like you're actually supremely confident, if you're Jean-Claude Van Damme and there's nobody who's going to usurp you, you don't have to. You have the luxury of being merciful.
Mm-hmm.
So the opening offer should be, and in 300. When Xerxes comes to town, offer 1 is basically mercy. It's where you're going to be a junior partner, but I'm going to show you mercy. I'm clearly stronger. I'm going to show you mercy. Offer 2 is I'm going to destroy you. In that way, I don't think Xerxes is out of bounds. We can see a real life example of what this really looks like. Hillary Clinton was perhaps one of the most powerful political candidates there has been. She was defeated by Barack Obama. Barack Obama basically did the same thing. He gave her the Xerxes offer. She took it, came into his administration. Now, I mean, there are people that I've heard good arguments that basically Obama is still in charge of the country. You would not hear arguments like that if he had not done that. If he, after beating her, if he had was not able to do that, I mean, I don't know if he would have won another term, etc. He would have had very, very powerful enemies to deal with.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
By the way, they had a very ugly primary.
I remember. I mean, like Hillary was trying to position herself as a populist, a woman of the white working class.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and then people forget this. I don't know. I don't even know to what extent this was a thing, but after the Clinton, because it was nasty between them. I was very young when this was happening, but I remember it. It was a nasty between them, and then also nasty between their factions of the Democratic Party, which is now funny to think because now they're both seen as like mainstream Dems. They joined forces after the Xerxes option, but you had Democrats for McCain who went from Clinton to McCain, which is crazy to think now, I guess. Well, actually, no, not honestly, it's not that crazy because McCain, is obviously, as we all know, pretty much part and parcel of that faction too. But like that was very much a thing in 2008. One could switch from Clinton to the old white guy, which is now a funny thing. But yeah.
To quote Alex Jones, he's now in hell.
Yeah, I actually take it back. It's really not that crazy, but like still, it's to think that any significant self-identifying Democrat and mainstream Democrat switching to Republican side, that now seems bonkers. But it was a thing. Well, obviously, it wasn't that enough of a thing to have McCain ever get even close to beating Obama, but it was. You look at the history, you see these, old protest signs, Democrats for McCain. And
it was really a sign of the times, like the gradual kind of siphoning off from the Republican Party of the PMCs to the Dems. And in a sense, good riddance.
Yeah. So the ability for Obama to do that gave him just immense power, just smash the right. There's another version of the story where that doesn't happen. But so that is more like another. But there's another version that is more of like reputational. Whereas if you are known as being magnanimous, you win battles that you would never have to fight. People that So I'm sure the people that work for Hillary are like loyal and stuff, but they must have to be like massively, I don't know, I forget what you call it, but vetted, etc. You must have to be a very peculiar kind of person. If you are known as being magnanimous, if you're known to being this kind of a very merciful person, people will just offer you their sword more easily. But in terms of politics, this moment may come for the right, may come for the Trumps. This is how you rocket up in power fast, by taking your conquered enemy and instead of and being magnanimous, being merciful and saying, we can bring you guys in, we can integrate you in. This is how you get exponentially more powerful fast. And people should remember.
Yarvin's big on this, right? I mean, I remember him on your pod was kind of talking about this with regard to how he would envision a right-wing takeover of things would basically be this. I don't remember how exactly he put it. He brought the Caesar example in, which was eye-opening to me.
You have to give people a way. Like if you tell people that you hate them and you are not going to be merciful towards them, well, they're gonna back them in a corner. They're gonna fight with everything they have because they have no other way out. If you tell people you want surrender to be nice and easy, you want to. Caesar would let people leave the battle with their weapons, which was, that was kind of dangerous. But the fact is, he would, like, half the other guy's soldiers would be like, hey, well, even though we lost this battle, I still need a job, and this guy seems like a good general. I'm going to go join him. And etc. This is just it's being merciful is good for yourself too, because you're not backing people into a corner to where they have to fight to the death. Make it easy for them. Make it nice and comfortable.
It's like a corporate takeover that you didn't have to work for. You won the battle, and then you're just like, oh yeah, you're our guys now. Like, well, and obviously the alternative isn't very good. So like suddenly you expand your faction by, you double it. Mm-hmm. And like, it's a very savvy move.
Not to go too far afield here, but I think there's a lot of interesting questions about the extent to which this did and didn't happen with Trump, and in which direction. Because I kind of think that after Trump won in 2016, conventional wisdom here, but I think it's sad but true. He won the election, but there was still the deep state, for lack of a better term, that was still kind of in charge of things. And I almost feel like in those days after he won and throughout his term, maybe there was almost a Xerxes option offered him. You have Obama. Obviously, they're not going to have a completely chaotic transition of power, but you have Obama meeting him after and saying, we owe him a chance, this, that, and the other thing. I think Clinton even probably said something to that effect. And I kind of get the impression that maybe I can't imagine that there weren't forces within the government who were probably trying to offer some kind of option like that to Trump and his supporters. And I kind of feel like he didn't, for as much as people want to say that, Trump didn't deliver on his like more populist and right-wing promises, I do think he resisted ever really joining forces with those kind of more deep set factions of the state. And lo and behold, now we have January 6th. Now we have not even to comment on any conspiratorial nature there, just everything is thrown at him to, they would like it so he can never run again. They really hate him and his people as much as they ever did. So
that is the plan.
Yeah.
they sketched it out.
Right. Yeah.
In I think like a BuzzFeed article.
Yeah. I mean,
they're like if we did it.
Yeah. No, I think that I tend to think he was offered some Xerxes option and actually did not take it, would be my theory about Trump.
If the way that this would influence sort of things going ahead, there is possible that there could be an ugly primary coming up for the Republicans in 2024.
You think so? Yeah.
Well, this is being floated about. I don't know. Either way that goes down, no matter if it does go down, which you should try not to have it go down, but if it does go down, both sides should be trying to utterly reconcile the second that the fight's over. The second that it's over, you need to, and this is like conquering, but it's in a good way. You need to bring that other person in the same way Obama did. And I guess I'm talking about DeSantis and Trump. I mean, if I was Trump right now, I would be trying to offer him, like, I don't know, vice president or something, but to anything to avoid the battle, because that is also a very good idea. That is avoiding, like, when you don't have to fight, it's better not to, because there's a lot of weird things could happen. Who knows what could turn up, but once it happens, both guys should be trying to bring the other side in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, they should avoid that at all costs, but we'll see what happens. I hear buzzings of both things, but not even to comment on that because I don't know. But it's a big TBD, who's going to run. I tend to think that both of those men are smart enough, and actually, not to suck them off too hard, but I think they actually care enough about their constituents that I think they'd work it out before blowing the shot. For Republican, the very real shot for Republicans to win in 24. But we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been following very closely, but I tend to think that DeSantis would be receptive to that offer.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I mean, he should be. The main thing is
see.
Trump is literally twice as old as DeSantis. I mean, DeSantis is old enough to be hosting Chapo. At most. Let's go back to something you said before about talking about the fight scenes that Trump skipped to the fight scene. Speaking of Trump, so that's one thing to understand is that a lot of these movies they rise above where they're at in specific ways. I think one way we'll talk about later is the way Bloodsport rises above is the integration with the Kowloon walled city. But but the basics of it. So growing up, I used to go to the video store. And all the kung fu movies were 99 cents for a week. So I would just watch all these kung fu movies. The basic draw of all these is people make fun of Steven Seagal a lot. Why? Why is Steven Seagal a thing? Why? Because his fights on camera, doesn't matter how fake Aikido is or whatever, they look cool. Same thing with Jean-Claude Van Damme. This looks cool. Ironically, in the way that MMA has developed, Jackson would be a successful UFC fighter, and Frank Dukes would not. Someone with basic boxing and wrestling skills would do fine in modern MMA. Frank Dukes, the karate guy, would not at all, which is a funny way that worked out.
Well, the really funny thing at the end of Bloodsport, it has a little end title card that says this is based on a real story about Frank Dukes. And I'd never heard of Frank Dukes, and I just immediately started laughing. It's there's no way this is based on a real story. And looking it up, this guy Frank Dukes just made up these crazy stories, and the guy who wrote Bloodsport knew that it was bullshit. He's the story was too good not to write. The best part is after that, it lists fake sabermetric stats for Frank Dukes in this completely made up tournament. He got the fastest knockout. His value over replacement fighter was the highest. I love that. That's the sign of a really good fabulous, right? This is a guy who he's so good at bullshitting that he goes into details that you never think about.
Yeah. No, I mean, it just kind of speaks to the whole hilarious aspect of the movie. You can, I mean, we in the notes got to this, a little bit later, but there's this, kind of bombastic part, and it's it's clearly there's a fabulism type element, and the dialogue itself, I mean, from today's vantage point where we like, watch very like realistic movies, like Matt and I talked about the difference between 80s Top Gun, the original, and Top Gun Maverick. And like, I like the cheesiness. It's funnier. And like, if that makes me a damn hipster, then I guess it does.
Yeah. I don't think it's not ironic. It's just like,
well, I mean, from our perspective viewing it now, I don't know, but like just for him to say like this is Bloodsport, kid. It's just like, it's great. It's just like, you love hearing that.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
like
a positivity to it. Yeah.
Martial arts movies were like pornographic movies back in the day. Like there's a plot, it exists, but nobody cares about it. And like you're like Trump, you're fast forwarding it to get to the part where people are getting their ass beat.
Right.
I guess that
Absolutely.
works for either pornographic movies or Bloodsport. But yeah, like there's
So-
like that
No
modern
problem with that,
movies.
though.
What?
Well, no problem with that. What about who's that guy, Joseph Campbell or whatever that wrote that book that said basically every great story that we like, the ones we consider the most important, they all have the exact same plot line.
Yeah, the like hero's quest.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like that is kind of like he
But
shows
by
up
the way, in terms of realism, I mean, so first off, most of the things that they did with fighting did not come true. But one thing is just like it did not change at all. So the guy Paco in the movie was the Muay Thai fighter. So Muay Thai turned out to be legit, and there wasn't really anything going on wrong with that. Things with karate basically, and what happened with MMA and stuff, the magic from karate was gone. Now we kind of know all this stuff with 1-inch punching and all this kind of stuff. That was all basically fake. The period where we didn't know that stuff, karate was able to be enchanting a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely like this was not an MMA movie. There were no arm bars. There were no, I mean, although you did see like in the different fighting styles, right? Like you have like the guy scampering around on the ground and like, obviously I'm not sure to what extent that's a real fighting style.
It's a real fighting style.
Oh,
yeah, it's real.
I get it.
Are you aware of early UFC?
Vaguely. I mean, like that was the Shamrock days, kind of, right?
Oh, yeah. So before it was banned the first time, so UFC was envisioned like literally like someone watched Bloodsport and said we should do this. Now, the thing is, people used to be very protective of these different fighting styles, and they would not fight mixed martial arts. Like the whole thing about mixed martial arts, you wouldn't get that because someone would be afraid. This is like the thing we were talking about earlier, that me and Merrick can fight and other people can't because they might like expose that, whatever their ism might be, like I might have a problem in it. They couldn't do this back in the day. So there had been some stuff, and it was all like hidden and secret stuff. The Gracie guy, who he had done some stuff. He went to Japan. He had figured it out. He thought that like if we ever did do mixed martial arts, my stuff would do fine. I would win. My stuff is actually the best. He basically funded the early UFC stuff. But anyways, the earliest UFC, it's exactly like Bloodsport. It's fun to watch. There's like a karate guy. There's a sumo wrestler, etc. And before this, Taekwondo was this massive thing in the United States. The UFC just basically destroyed the Taekwondo industry because
I
Taekwondo
remember.
it's like
I took it as a kid. I'm 36, so I was in that Taekwondo age where like, oh yeah, you do Taekwondo and practice these dances.
So like early UFC was like the 80s the fight to survive montage where a bunch of jobbers are just getting swept away from the scene, like all these different kind of like do people still is just judo still a legit martial art?
A lot of these things are, so I think judo got into the Olympics, so it's still around like that. Most of these, the UFC basically really flattened or changed a lot of these fighting styles or brought them back to their old way. So there is still like, there's like 2 top karate guys in the Ultimate Fighting stuff, but it's all heavily different. So I don't know, like as soon as UFC happened, it was clear that like there's like a couple of things that work and a couple of things that don't. The I don't know. You could the most one of the more interesting things. So we've seen American wrestling basically works fine, like high school wrestling style. They do fine in UFC and stuff. They have to do a little bit of changes and stuff.
Yeah.
But the big cutting edge technology that everyone had to change to. It's like if you go take Taekwondo now or something, I bet there's going to be some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in there.
Yeah.
Because that was like the real technology. You could watch the first 3 or 4 UFCs. There's like Hoist Gracie is in there. He goes up fighting guys that are way out of his weight range, etc. He doesn't punch back, but he has this special thing, this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that was just destroying people. But anyways, that was basically the UFC was the culmination of Bloodsport, the end of Bloodsport, and then bringing in this new period. You could not make Bloodsport again today because the magic is gone. There's no more magic in karate and fighting really.
Yeah, no, I mean, UFC now seems to be pretty much a hybrid of BJJ and I guess something, akin to boxing or Muay Thai and like that. And that's like kind of all you need.
Yeah, you either do basically it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu / Muay Thai or wrestling / American style boxing.
Muay Thai is what he learns in kickboxer, right?
Yeah. In America, I don't think we dip the gloves in glass, but otherwise.
I had a buddy that did Muay Thai, and I don't know how realistic. I don't know how realistic it is, but they do that thing where you kick like a board over and over again to callous your bones out and stuff. It's it's kind of like perfect for movies. Yeah.
That brings us to another point, which is the noble suffering, and like that's a trope in his movies here, and like it's it is a kind of a right-wing thing, like you for a goal you will suffer and you will undertake deprivation, and they like to make it very aesthetic. And
it's
so
like the stretching scene in Bloodsport,
Mel Gibson, his movies obviously have this element. Mishima, obviously, I don't even need to say more there. But to Matt's point, like we literally have in Bloodsport and in Kickboxer, this guy's got like a pulley machine attached to his legs, pulling them apart, like brutalizing his groin.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Which Jackson even
like,
comments on. He's like, you're gonna have kids one of these days, Yeah.
It's I mean, like it's interesting. Like at what point, as you're watching this, is it like, okay, this is getting weird?
So the one thing I know IQ is this thing right-wing people talk about intelligence or whatever. If there was another number that measured your ability to delayed gratification, that would be more important than your IQ.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of like the skill basically everybody wants. And I think that's like sacrificing in the moment is one thing, and that is important, but it's nothing like the sustained. This is like the Tradcast guys. They got Gilbert Keith Chesterton. He writes about this a lot. That like really like the real main skill that gives you all the superpowers of a human. A human is a crazy thing. We can do the amount of things that a monkey can do a lot of things, but a human can do a crazy amount of things. They could take seals and drop them in Antarctica. They could a human can climb a mountain with no ropes or whatever. We can do anything. But but to unlock all this, the main thing you need is this delayed gratification. That is the hardest ability to suffer.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like kind of the more above board side of it, the more obviously sort of right wing, or not even right wing, just like, straightforward thing is like, obviously you need to suffer to succeed. I think part of what you're getting at, Dan, though, is like, at what point is it almost like aesthetically a bit fetishistic? I don't know if this is a welcome digression in the context of this conversation, but at what point is it almost a little gay? Because we do talk about Mishima, who, obviously is there's debate about
a
how
little bit of
much you should-
cornholing going on there.
Yeah. You get I don't want to say Mishima was gay because there's some right-wing debate about how that should even be categorized. I don't want to piss anyone off. But there's if you've seen the Paul Schrader,
our
by the way,
homo nationalist boys, don't worry.
yeah.
We're not against you.
I bring up Paul Schrader a lot. I brought him up in the last show. He did the Yukio Mishima movie where you see Mishima suffering in all kinds of physical ways. Other Schrader movies as well, like American Gigolo and others, and even Taxi Driver. There's that almost theme of like bodily suffering as being somehow edifying.
Also, like, take this back to not to be sacrilegious, but like obviously, there is a component of noble suffering at the core of our civilization. And I mean, there's like it has like a real moral component to it, but it also, like in some of these movies, gets like a little much.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, go on.
Sorry, you can know good.
I was saying, I don't personally. I don't have any issue with that. I don't think there's any issue with it being gay. I think in the case of Mishima and like you see in that Schrader movie, like the Saint Stephen pierced by arrows thing, like yes, there is a certain, I think, gay attraction, like a certain gay appreciation for those aesthetics. Nevertheless, I don't think they are of them in and of themselves at all gay or anything like that. I think there is a beauty to them, and I think they are part and parcel of our civilization. They're part and parcel of Christianity, even, and definitely in these Van Damme movies, even it's kind of understood that through suffering, so that basically that suffering builds strength. I think that's all it is. I don't think there's any issue with it becoming aestheticized, even if it can be fetishized by some.
in the context of the movie, and like in this is not just these movies, like in Rocky, running up the steps, whatever, the montage, it usually happens in the montage. The point is that the pain that you go through is temporary, and the ultimate goal is it's going to make you stronger. You're not suffering for suffering's sake. You're suffering because that's the only way you can become stronger. Because every gain requires pain, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a point here. Like we live in, like right now, the Joker quote. We live in a society where suffering is like almost currency, the way that honor was currency, but it's not suffering with the idea that I'm going to come out this stronger on the other end. It's suffering for the sake of suffering, and this suffering I've had has made me weak. So you have to do things. You have to protect me. You have to do things for me, which is very much antithetical to. I mean, I'm going to say Christian tradition. Like there's been no time in human history.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
exactly.
it's not real.
Of course, yeah.
It's not real suffering. Largely, the stuff they're talking about. So, like, real suffering generally builds character. And one of the reasons why these, like, woke, like I've been microaggressed people are so annoying is they haven't actually suffered, and thus they have not had their character formed by such things.
So I am just suspicious in general of I know that there's something to it, but I'm just highly suspicious in general of suffering as a virtue. I mean, so I used to play a lot of poker and stuff. It's obvious that gambling addicts, they do what they do because they want to lose. There's a part of them that wants that, it not having enough money to pay the rent or whatever does something that excites them. There are a lot of people that I don't. There's just nothing. I don't trust it in any way in any abstract way. Also, you will not have any trouble finding body suffering if you live on this earth. So it will not, the high this week in Texas will not, it'll be above 100 every day. If you want to suffer, just walk outdoors. Or if you don't want to do that, or you live somewhere cold, just get older. I guarantee you have some body suffering coming up. So I'm just sort of I don't trust it outright. I'm not saying it's good, it's not bad, but certainly you need to learn how to delay gratification. But just suffering in general,
it's a means, not an end. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think that's also where it becomes an issue. And I don't think Van Damme movies or Mishima or Christianity are guilty of portraying, suffering is just good. I mean, there are certain, like, I guess, schools of thought in Christianity that have gone that direction, and usually they end up being considered kind of weird or even heretical. But in general, I think that it's not the suffering that's good; it's the overcoming. So it's a nuanced thing where you can't it's kind of like our discussion of masculinity and honor earlier. It's not some one autistic thing where it's like this good, maximize this. It's like this in this context for this reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Get a shitty job that no one cares about. There's infinite ways that you can learn to suffer in this life. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like, as you said, just get older. Like earlier this week, I woke up just sleeping the wrong way and I had a headache all day. And like, that didn't used to happen to me.
Yeah. And did that make you stronger? Maybe not. Maybe it just sucked.
Yeah.
No, it's just annoying.
Yeah.
If you listen, so doctors will have like, one of the most common things people tell doctors is like, this has never happened to me before. And like the 99% of the time it's like, yeah, you weren't 35 before, you weren't 45 before, you weren't 55 before. There's that. By the way, I think this goes into the other thing, because there's also something. So we talk in the outline, we have beauty. And so beauty is definitely a virtue, but once again, this is a virtue I'm highly suspicious of. I will never accept this like on its own. I know some people do. I know there's a lot written about this, but if you simply worship beautiful people, or you think someone's right because they're beautiful, this physiognomy and all this. So by the way, I have a theory on physiognomy I'd like to share with other people. So where did this come from? Why is this so useful online? I think that it's just a verbal trick. So the point of physiognomy is if I say, Merrick, you are ugly, that is bannable. That is just me saying you adjective. But if I say, Merrick, your physiognomy is terrible. I did not say that about you. I said that about this quote unquote thing, physiognomy. So I think that is the entire reason why people use this word, just because it's like illegal to just tell someone they're ugly. But I mean, like look around. These people, the right wing is deluded a lot of times when they think like all this stuff. When people really get into stuff like what is that spandrel idea of
and the IQ shredder and bio-Leninism, yeah.
Right.
Any of this thing where you start out saying like, well, I'm just so much better than everyone else, and that's where all the problems come from. You are just asking to be cut down. Second off, like I guarantee you, the top 1% of all these categories, they're not going to be on your side. The most beautiful people, they're going to be libtards. The richest people, they're going to be libtards. The biggest successful people in business, they're going to be libtards. Like this is a bad, like, and second off, the right has real problems. Like we're not just people that are just sitting around tanning our balls because life is so great, right? like I mean, we're confronting real problems. So this is like highly delusional if it goes too far. I'm not telling people that not to work out or do these other things, but if you start just declaring your genetic superiority, everybody, that's not a great game plan. In my opinion.
You're talking about aesthetics, right? Basically. Like the problem with beauty is in the concept that we're rolling with here. It's like the word awesome, right? If you read the word awesome in a 19th century book, it means something different than it means today. And like we're like
nothing now. Yeah.
Yeah, and beauty is the same way. It means like what? So this person, that lady's hot or whatever. Like we've had Dave, the distributors, on our show twice, and he likes to talk about like truth and beauty. And I've never asked him to, define your terms, but like it's obvious the way he talks about it. He means something far deeper than aesthetics. Like the kind of beauty that like. Well, I don't want to get too religious, but like you see where I'm going.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we've taken a term that had deeper meaning and we've applied it extremely narrowly. And like you hit the nail on the head with the part like there are real problems. Like the people who are obsessed with the aesthetics, like that's something you do in the parlor while the help draws your bath or whatever. Like that's not. It's got nothing to do with people like us. So I let them argue about it forever or whatever.
Right. But now, if people do that, and they're very good at that, like so, the guys who like, so I consider the neoclassical painting, especially there's this debate like what is better, neoclassical paintings. There's a big tweet going around, or modern art. So in that way, like I do, like beauty does have like it is a virtue. Like you should protect the things that are beautiful. But like this is especially as one of the funny things is they've done all these studies on men and like how we rate women on dating websites and stuff. And like it's pretty obvious that like if you take a woman that is not fat and you give her like a professional makeup job, that's a beautiful woman. That like 99% of men cannot, like there's no maybe there's some difference of like the angle of the cheekbones between Angelina Jolie and just a random 19-year-old chick that's not fat that has a lot of makeup on, but men can't really detect. We don't really know the difference. We just know that chick's hot, and like 90% of women that aren't fat are hot. And so this is all just highly suspicious. But the main thing is that this is going to lead you down weird thoughts between like who's the governor of California?
Newsom.
Guys like Newsom, or the right has seen like basically they thought that who's that pop singer that held out for a long time and now she's like
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, they were like, well, she must be a holy and righteous whatever because she's so beautiful, and she had given them everything she wanted by just not saying anything at all. Of course now, like, so this is a very, I mean, so it certainly is a virtue. There's something there. There's something between a beautiful painting, looking at a waterfall versus like a modern art or things that are ugly. People celebrate so we know that the left celebrates things that are ugly, and that is gross.
There was something I noticed when I watched these three movies, in that in Double Impact, the very start of the movie is Jean-Claude Van Damme in a leotard with being ogled by like a dozen women. And then in Bloodsport, there's also a love scene that fades to black immediately. And then when the camera cuts back, the woman's completely covered, but Jean-Claude Van Damme is putting on
he
clothes.
likes to show himself off very clearly.
And in Double, and in also I guess in Double Impact, there's a love scene that actually shows a woman naked too. But I got the impression from all these, like you were meant to be looking at Jean-Claude Van Damme, and apparently women really like that was his big appeal, that like you get women to watch these shitty martial arts movies that you put a hot Frenchman in it.
I disagree. So, and this is something that so I think the reason why he's the star of the movie is like that, like watching him fight looks cool. And I know people like, well, people will bring up like, well, this politician is handsome or something. Think how many like million guys that nobody knows their name of that were like Abercrombie models and stuff. Yeah. No one cares about them at all. A man, so a woman, this is true. So like a woman is like an object. And so if there's a beautiful woman, that's like all that matters. But with a man, it's what you do. And I just basically.
Yeah, but he's both.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Chuck Norris isn't hot. Chuck Norris was in a bunch of great, Steven Seagal was a good looking guy, but like Jean-Claude Van Damme is like top 1% most attractive people all time, right? Like objectively, if you measure.
Yeah, like no Schwarzenegger. Like Schwarzenegger, obviously, like jacked, huge, but like, I mean, no homo. Van Damme is a better looking guy.
Yeah,
and like that's clear. And I think the women probably, they did appreciate that to the extent they agreed to go to these movies with their boyfriends, their husbands.
It's true, but I think women are weird about this stuff. So like, a guy in a band, if they don't know a guy's in a band, then he doesn't exist. Then the guy comes out in a band and like, it doesn't matter what he looks like. They're like, no, I just find him attractive. You just got to look at the way that his ears are like this and that. It's
status. Status is very important. And I mean, like, obviously it's kind of, it's almost a feminine way of approaching looks, right? Like he's a good looking guy, but yeah, women generally, need more than that. Whereas we don't. Like status is, kind of important for a man in the sense that you want someone of a certain whatever social class or, a certain personality. But like in general, you're not like, oh, well, she's the CFO of such and such company. I'm really hot for her now. It's not how it works. But like,
you just have to listen to like, if you get in the right, I mean, this will happen to everyone at some point. You will hear a woman describe how good looking a man is that is clearly not, but he's like happens to be a lead singer of a band. He's a billionaire or something like that. And they're like, no, it's this very specific way of this and that. And it's all bullshit. It is like, the guy in the opening band, it doesn't matter what he is. The guy in the main act is what they care about. So it is a factor, but it is not the main factor. And as a guy, you can't be thinking about that. As a guy, you got to be thinking about what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, there's enough women who have a crush on Ed. I don't even want to diss specific people, but I'm just going to go ahead. There's enough women who have a crush on Ed Sheeran to probably prove this. I was gonna give a few other examples of musicians, but I actually think I'll shut up because I don't want to necessarily. Not that
what about the incel guy that was in the? He's got those pictures of him in like the Mercedes and stuff. I don't know his name. He's one of the killers.
Are we talking about Elliot Roger? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, was he not a handsome guy?
I mean, look, I'm straight, whatever. But like, yeah, my impression was, I think that's one of the reasons people are fascinated with him is because he doesn't seem that looking, not super masculine looking, but a pleasant enough face, right? I think that's one of the reasons people are fascinated by him because it almost proves some point about the looks not mattering as much thing.
This does matter to men as well. I mean, if you go back to your high school yearbooks or whatever and go look through them, whoever was like the most popular girl, I guarantee, like, if you had seen them like 3 years later, or you had a different idea, more than likely it was like just like a hot. She was like moderately hot, but she was like the rich and like a bitch. And like, and that like psyops people and like, wow, she's like the hottest girl on the planet. This was the same way in my high school. And then like, 2 years later, like there was one chick that was like, everyone made fun of or whatever. And like, but she was clearly super hot. She became like a bikini model or whatever. Yeah. But it's just the psyop of the status thing. And that works on men, but men much less. Women are crazy about this.
Yeah, well, Dan and I were talking about this in a different context. It's like social structure and hierarchy and social fabric, often to positive ends, but sometimes also to negative ends, especially in like a high school context where everyone's kind of an asshole. Has so much to do, and I think for both genders and sexualities in this case, so much to do with your perception of who's attractive and who's not. And this is to go off topic, but I think Dan and I were talking the other day about how like that's probably one of the reasons we're so like atomized sexually, and there's more and more incels and perhaps even femcells now, is because there's less and less of that social fabric in existence. So now it's all the superficial crap on dating apps, whether it's pure status stuff or pure looks, rather than the delicate balance of like, oh, this guy's in this band, or like, you
need the information to make an informed choice. So when like two atomized people show up like, oh, I met you on Hinge or whatever, it's like, yes, the man is always putting on the show. But in addition to that, like you just don't know anything about each other, and you don't know like where you fit in the various like hierarchies. You don't know like, the social network that you two are part of. And thus, there's a lot of kind of like, if you're from the woman's perspective, you're sitting down and you're like this guy it's a sales pitch. And like, these things aren't meant to be really sales pitches. Exactly. I mean, yes, there's always an element of that. But like back in the day, it was more like, oh, I know him from work. I know him from school. I know him. So like, yeah, he's kind of trying to, give me a pitch here, but it's like, it's not just that. Whereas like now on like these dates, it's like, how can I get you to fuck me?
Yeah, it's depressingly transactional. Even when it's not directly money related, it's depressingly like transactional as opposed to being part and parcel of some
Yeah.
bigger system of people who all know each other, you know?
If you're talking about using the app, it's like pretty much like the OK Cupid, I think, released stats on this, or maybe it was Tinder, whatever. One of these companies that like the way men rate women and the way women rate men, totally different. Women are like, they think that the last like the top 20% are like the only people on earth. So if you're using the dating app and you're male, it's like you're no longer competing with like the person next to you. You're competing with like the top 20% to like like a timeshare boyfriend for these women, right? Like they're not good.
100%. Yeah.
So like at that point, it's like, well, you know, who what are you even doing? And it's that's a very, very black pill.
No, I did a little experiment on my apps, and on one app I took off my college and my job. I'm a lawyer, and I got, you know, a tenth of the matches or messages. It's you know, like these markers of status are the only thing that people go, and looks, of course. So like, yeah, like maybe I still would have gotten a lot of looks if I looked like Brad Pitt.
Van Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Exactly.
It's also so ask any guy that you know that works in sales. Ask him if he does all right. No matter what he looks like, ask him if he does run the apps. They will probably say yes. There's a thing about there's a good, yeah.
I would think that he would do better in person, meeting people, like, you know, the cold approach.
Sales guys probably work over email now anyway. So,
but there's a great concept that the NBA has sort of developed where there's like, so the NBA players, a lot of them we don't know exactly how tall they are. So basically, if you skip the whatever they call this, the compound or whatever, where they if you skip the combine, then you have to present yourself to this thing where they will to like a different kind of like medical analysis, and one of the parts of it is they will measure you without shoes on. And this is like the only way that we know the actual height of many NBA players. The rest of it, you can just look at pictures and stuff. And what people have figured out is that NBA players, there is like their true height, and then there's like their spiritual height. So, so like, good example.
Charles
so
Barkley's spiritually 7 feet tall.
Well, so like Dwight Howard is probably shorter than who's that guy that freaks out on Twitter all the time? KD. What's his name?
Kevin
Durant.
Yeah.
So Kevin Durant is probably taller than Dwight Howard, but he's not like. But you don't think of him as being taller than him. You know what I mean? He's just spiritually shorter. So you list your height is sort of like this other number that's hard to explain. So Klay Thompson is probably like 6'7". He's like on the taller end. Klay Thompson is one of these people that lists himself as shorter because he doesn't really carry himself like someone that's 6'7", 6'8". He kind of acts like a normal, like 6'2", 6'3". There is this other number that is like that is basically more important than your true height, which is like your spiritual height, the height that you carry yourself with. It's very, and like the thing is, this totally functions in the NBA. No one has any problem with it. It's sometimes people bring it up as like it's kind of funny, or you see players post together with pictures. You're like, wait a minute, I thought that guy says he's 7 feet tall. He's the same height as the fucking guards and stuff. But it works. It just works. People like get it, and that kind of thing exists in normal life, but we don't really think about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like how you always see, even if you're, and I'm personally, this is not the case for me, but if you grow taller than your own father, which happens for some people, you may never quite see it that way because you're always going to see, yeah.
You will be spiritually shorter than your father always.
But no, definitely operative. Definitely operative in real life. You know, you hear people talk. It's crass, but well, I won't even say it. You know, big dick energy, shall we say? It's real, for better or worse. You know.
Now, another aspect of Van Damme's movies we wanted to jump into, and this is very relevant to the mission statement of New Right, creating a space for, the type of art that was no longer able to be produced. Van Damme is not woke. These movies are not woke. This was before wokeness. And so it's kind of fun to go through, and I'm not sure there's even a point to this, but it's kind of fun to go through like the ways in which this movie, though innocuous and like well loved at the time, would not be able to be made today. So like in the opening of Bloodsport, there are like various kind of, because there are fighters from all around the world, and they kind of like in their depicting their fighting styles and what they're doing in their countries. It's probably in today's world would be seen as somehow racist to show, the African fighter in the tree, that was perhaps, maybe even by the standards of the time, that was a little spicy. But
you don't have access to an Arab fighter, so you just put a turban on an Asian guy.
Yeah,
that was amazing. Yeah, they literally just put turbans on Chinese guys, like, my name's Saeed. Like, no, it's not. You are obviously Chinese. But they didn't play it for laughs. It was great. It was like more like the African fighter who he's in the movie and fighting in the Kumite. He's like, he's moving around like a chimpanzee.
Yeah, no, I was like, what am I
like,
watching?
But he's played 100% seriously. There's no tongue in cheek. This is how he fights, and it works for a while anyway.
Yeah, no, it's by
the way, that's real fighting style. That's capoeira.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what.
No,
it
it's
was.
real.
Sorry,
I bet the guy really knew something of it. I mean, they were just trying to show like these are fighters from all around the world. I think that was the main idea. That very 80s sort of like world music vibe.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna go around the world and everyone. Yeah. And it definitely wasn't made to mock, but it wouldn't be portrayed this way now.
Before globalization had taken over completely, and everything in the world was the same and boring.
Right. Yeah. That's, and the 80s was kind of a high watermark for that. Like, and there's the whole like feed the world thing too, and the fascination with Africa of that time. It was a little different than it is now because, I think globalization was a little less set in stone.
There's also there's like this thing of the different fighting style. This is like the early UFC thing. There is a mystery element to it. So people were actually like you would have no idea of knowing at that time if capoeira was a legitimate fighting style, if these different things. And people were like that. It was a great world mystery. Like people actually did really want to know this, and having this like super quote unquote diverse cast would it was like a legitimate thing that was going on. In terms of the wokeness thing, I mean, so this is kind of a side point. I don't want to get into it much, but like I've been watching X-Files a lot lately.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before. And what's interesting about X-Files is like X-Files exists before and after wokeness, and you can sort of and that is like a funnier element when like you have the same series before and after it. Yeah.
Well, it's when Fox became Jewish.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing because that's perfect because he's like the exact.
Actually, Scully.
Yeah, because like that's kind of like, if I understand, that is kind of like what. I don't know. This is kind of the thing that's talked about in the Distant Right a lot. Ron Unz has an article about that. Basically, like the WASP were replaced to some extent. These high institutions, Harvard and stuff, by lots of Jewish guys, right? Mm-hmm. But this is hilarious because this is exactly what the actor that plays Mulder is. His parents were Jewish. He did get into big time.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's right. And Duchovny and his parents did come to the United States. He was a Hungarian Jew. He did get into like Ivy League schools and stuff. And the first 4 or 5 seasons, he is a WASP. And then season 6 or whatever, now he becomes a Jew. It's like exactly perfect.
Yeah.
Changing of the guard. No longer the Good Shepherd aesthetic onto the new one.
Yeah, absolutely. But one non-woke element of Bloodsport that I did appreciate, and I genuinely appreciated it. It wasn't just like, oh, this is a different era and like, haha, this is kind of a little less politically correct, but like that I actually think was actually like heartening to see, and that I wish was more the case, was the character of Jackson. You know, at the beginning of the movie, he's seen flirting with like a woman in Hong Kong, and he literally says, "Hey, you want to date a big man?" Like I completely thought that he was going to be a villain. By the way, because nowadays any chud American portrayed that way is totally villainized. That Jackson basically seems like a Trump supporter and would be completely villainized in any modern movie. But even in the 80s, and I'm a fan of the Karate Kid franchise, like it's very aesthetic to me, whatever. I like it. But even in those, there is a little bit of that, like, Daniel Russo, the kind of, more, what's the word, swarthy protagonist versus like the blonde, whatever that guy's name is. There's a little bit of that, like, it's not
Ellis Island resentment. Yeah.
Ellis Island resentment against, good old boys to kind of bring it full circle to your guys' pod name. But, a good old boys or Wasp, whatever you want to say. There is that very much, even in the 80s movies, but in Bloodsport, I was totally queued up. And the movie almost seems like it's setting it up to be that way, because like you kind of see him and you see Jean-Claude Van Damme. I don't remember his name in the movie. It doesn't matter, right? Like you see them coming from, Jean-Claude's coming from the United States. Jackson's already there. I really think this is going to be the final round is between them. But then, as we talked about earlier, there's that, and it is one of the more like so much of the movie is a little bit like cliche in terms of the plotting, but that video game scene, I thought that was actually pretty well done. It's like they kind of come together over this video game about what they're about to do, and they're buddies without any tension really. It's like Goose and Maverick in Top Gun. And I mean, Jackson is portrayed as being a little bit goofy and always drinking beer and stuff. But basically as lovable. And, I really can't remember the last time I saw a movie that kind of portrayed a quote unquote chud American in that manner. And I genuinely, like, I found it heartening. I was like, this is nice to see, because I'm so used to the usual Hollywood thing of the Ellis Island resentment or like really, really putting down anyone who's portrayed as like a less economically well-off white.
Yeah, when I first saw him, I also thought he was going to be like, this is the guy who's got to beat in the first round. But like, it is the video game scenes. The funny thing is, the Revenge of the Nerds guy who plays Jackson is far and away the best actor in the movie. It's not even close.
Oh yeah.
Nobody else in the movie is like he's like a D-list actor, but he's head and shoulders above everyone else. The video game scene is actually really important, because like you instantly see how does Jackson react when he loses, and he's like. He's not mad at him. He's like, "Oh wow, you're pretty good this game. Huh? Wow, I'm gonna get better and beat you." Like he has the same attitude that Van Damme has. Obviously, he's arrogant and foolish in his own way, but it's like deep down, he's the same kind of guy, and so they instantly get along. They become best friends, like on the spot. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's heartwarming because they're both masculine in completely different ways. There's like the sort of, obviously Van Damme's a little bit of pretty boy, but also very strong, very disciplined, very into the art of it all. He was trained, in the ancient art, whatever the Tanaka family, whatever it was. And then, Jackson's a total chud. He's drinking beer between matches. We don't even really have, he's your classic boot in your ass American. But the fact that they're both very masculine in totally different ways, but then like have each other's backs, the male friendship of it all, it's, it took me by surprise very positively.
This is a kind of necessary thing that in a lot of these kung fu movies, especially Arnold Schwarzenegger is best work is when you have a movie like this. So like, what is the character of Jackson? He basically so the problem with Jean-Claude Van Damme, especially at this time, his English is not great. He's not a great actor. Also, it's kind of better in the movie if he is stoic. The problem is that's not great for a movie. So what do you do? So the best example is Arnold True Lies. You give him Tom Arnold basically does this. Tom Arnold is this very larger than life character. He takes care of all this that brings Arnold's like personality to life. You put him with one of these people like this, or a more poignant example, Arnold in Conan, Subutai says he's Conan, Sumerian. He will not cry, so I will cry for him. And this is what when you have an actor like Jean-Claude Van Damme, you need to have a guy to cry for him, because
it's a good point.
this is what Kickboxer was missing. There was nobody like that. So like the movie's boring because you just have Jean-Claude Van Damme, the Asian teacher guy who's non-reactive, and then it's like.
Yeah, or rather, you just didn't have the same level of connection, right? Because there is the black guy he's friends with who's more lively. He does have his brother, but like he doesn't really develop the connection that he had with Jackson.
Yeah, this is so one of the most popular things like this. Obviously, Rush Hour made a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. You had an actor doesn't speak English great. Another like this movie, like the movie Bloodsport, Jean-Claude Van Damme's made it a lot of times, and he even directed it once. One of the best ones is The Quest. I recommend everybody watch.
Oh,
it.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh,
I'll
it's
have to
great.
Check it out.
It's Jean-Claude Van Damme directed it, and it's the same thing. And it's Frank Dukes. The actual Frank Dukes gets the credit for the writing and everything. It's a tournament, but it's set in the 20s, and Roger Moore is like his buddy in it, and Roger Moore is fantastic in it.
Huh. Like older Roger Moore?
Yeah. And Roger Moore is like, I don't know, 70 in it. He looks like $1 million. He looks like, if I looked like that when I was 61, I would feel great. He's old as hell, and he looks like $1 million in the movie.
You know, they aged really well. It's true.
In Double Impact, they try to fix this problem by having like a lively version of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like the Chad character is supposed to be like the comic.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
but he can't quite pull it off. Really. But I will say, if we're talking about not woke, the Double Impact is definitely the least woke of the three we watched. Alex calls his brother the F slur within 2 minutes of meeting him. Right, he had calls him that, and then he says it again when he before or after he punches the walkie-talkie because he's so angry at his brother for potentially cucking him.
Yeah, and crucially, go on. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. No, go ahead.
So, and crucially, as that develops, he, grows angrier and angrier, thinking his brother is cucking him. And then when they return home to the hideout, whatever, where they're all living, he slaps her. He slaps his girlfriend because he thinks that she cheated on him, and it's not really the viewer knows it's not really a reasonable thing. Like he really shouldn't think this. And then he proceeds to fight his twin brother Chad. And crucially, in the context of the movie, I mean, she forgives him for the slap, and the movie forgives him too. It's like it's written off as like, this is him being a kind of like possessive masculine man. And when a possessive masculine man thinks he's getting cucked, like he might slap you. And like, this is something that obviously would not fly today. Like it might happen in the movie today, but that it would be like a black mark against him for the rest of the movie, and he'd be atoning for it or something like that. And I don't say this to like say I support hitting women. I do not, but it's an interesting observation.
Which that's not all just censorship, though. I mean, so have you guys ever been to Disney World?
Yeah, not World.
If you go to Disney. So if you go to Disney World, there's a decent chance you'll see a Japanese guy hit his wife. They still do it. Did you see that when you were there?
Not in Disneyland, no. But,
okay, so I don't know why, but they more so go to the one in Orlando, and if you go 2 or 3 times, you will see it. So it's like, and the way that all the Westerners react, you can tell that like we've changed, because like every Westerner is there will just like, they just look, you get very uncomfortable. I mean, I got uncomfortable. I was like, I'd never seen that. I'd never seen that in my life. And you could tell no one else in the whole bus had seen her. I've seen this several times at Disney World. Maybe people in the comments, tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me you've seen a Japanese guy smack.
I gotta ask, are we talking hard? I assume we're talking a light smack on the cheek. We're not talking.
Basically, crazy, yeah, right? like a slap, yeah. But also, but there's like just in general, like the yelling and just like grabbing and stuff but yes, like you will see a slap. Guys in the comments, tell me if you've seen this, but you will see this at Disney World. And so that is the part we have changed. By the way, so if you need to watch everyone, so Kickboxer is like, it's pretty good in terms of Jean-Claude Van Damme.
No, it's not. No, don't
I
tell
mean,
me. It is
but,
not.
but hang on, so let me finish. So, but you have to see it for the dancing scenes, which are
Oh
iconic.
yes, yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
No, he loves himself. Like he's there dancing. Like you can tell this guy is just like he's feeling himself.
yeah.
Before we move on from the woke thing, I gotta say, Double Impact was the least woke because what happens at the very end of the movie, the last scene of the movie, Chad throws up the white power OK sign and it freezes frame on him.
Also,
yeah,
the woke. Well, this is actually from Kickboxer. I thought this was interesting when he grabs the nurse's ass, and it's just like everyone thinks it's like she turns around shocked, and then she's like, "Oh, you," and the doctor's laughing, and it's just like, can you imagine this in a movie today if the protagonist just like grabs the woman's ass, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is a sweet moment."
Don't mind if I do, yeah.
Kickboxer, he had a lot more. Like he wrote Kickboxer, so you can you guys see it. But so there's the dancing scene, Kickboxer, and the thing that take from Double Impact is the drip. Drip is out of control in that movie. You could any of those fits, you could rock that shit today and look good. All of it, guys. You gotta watch Double Impact and check out the drip.
I mean, the one thing, he really likes the low scooped tank tops. Like you gotta be chiseled to be wearing that stuff. Like if your tank top goes down to your navel, you got you better look like Van Damme.
People, so I'm like a like Southern, like kind of frat boyish kind of guy. And we wear the scene, the outfit he's got, like the beginning of Double Impact, the basically khaki shorts that are decently short, and the polo, like that is a great.
That's a good
throw
one.
that on with some deck shoes. Where that shit is awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. People hate on that shit online. No way. The one of the most hateful images, the thing that they've ever done on the internet is there's that meme, and you ask people like, okay, what is the point of the meme? That meme where the guy's like, we had to do it to them.
Yeah, of course.
I ask people like, okay, what's the problem? They try to like imply that he doesn't look good. Like, well, no, I'm sorry. Like, if that guy would have been the most popular guy in your high school, girls would have liked him. This is like a bullshit meme. If the point of the meme is that like this guy is not killing it, there's nothing wrong with that the frat boy fit.
Yeah, no, I'll never. Every time I see that meme, I think of like my freshman year of college fondly. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, obviously, the funny thing is like he so perfectly embodies that kind of, and yeah, maybe some of them are a little douchey, quote unquote, but nevertheless, like it's something.
But people are generally like,
yeah,
if they don't like it, it's because of like things like jealousy or something.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody looks at that guy and is like, wow, this guy looks like shit.
Yeah, no, it's a good Lacoste ad right there.
Yeah, Jean-Claude really pulls off the like Attitude Era Shawn Michaels look in Double Impact, right, with the Alex brother, the cool brother. He has the same exact. You guys remember that Shawn Michaels?
Oh yeah. Degeneration
he looks,
X.
Yeah, and then his brother's the opposite. He's like the preppy California. And
well, he's like the other Shawn Michaels, right? Kind of like.
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, he's like pre-DX Shawn Michaels. And then like Shawn Michaels went bad and he became the Alex bad boy. But that's another thing I wanted to talk about, how like it's just how fucking hilarious it is that like, they have these twins and obviously it's just him. And like, the personality just totally changes when you slick the hair back. And like, you're just like suddenly like, oh, well, he's not an F word anymore. He's a badass.
He's also trying to disguise his accent a little bit as Chad. He doesn't do a very good job. Like that makes him. His dialogue comes off a little bit. I don't know, stilted. But that's not a problem in the context of the movie because, like,
Yeah.
Chad is supposed to be kind of a dork. He doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah. No, it's just like to see them and to have people like be like legitimately confused and be like, well, wow, you have kind of gay hairstyle now, Alex. What's going on? Have you become golfers?
Are people too like irony poisoned or like?
Yes.
Are the people consider themselves too advanced to like? I don't know if they would even do when was the last like one of these dual role movies? Because the concept in itself, I think people would consider that too
Eddie
cheesy
Murphy.
to even attempt.
Well, that Enemy by the guy
Will
who did
Smith.
Dune. No, Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he plays himself. I think.
Yeah.
It's like a really
go on. Yeah.
No, it's like a creepy this guy Jake Gyllenhaal discovers it's another Jake Gyllenhaal, and it's weird.
Yeah, it's not done in the way it's done in Double Impact.
No,
yeah, that was like very on the nose, like two of them, even I guess even reflected in the title.
Terrible split screen too.
Yeah. But it's still done occasionally, but I do think we've kind of moved past like, oh, this guy's going to play two characters. One movie that came to mind, this is a pretty old movie at this point, very, very different, but Adaptation, the Spike Jonze movie, or no, rather, Spike Jonze, I think, and then written by
Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah. Good movie. I like that movie a lot. It's very funny to me. But yeah, Nick Cage plays two characters in a way it's a little bit like this, like what the fuck is going on? But you need an actor like Nick Cage where like you expect it to be a little ridiculous to kind of pull it off, I think.
There was a movie that came out before Double Impact, like 3 years, and it had Jeremy Irons in it, and it had, I can't remember the name of it. I apologize, but it did the same split screen technique, but like he actually did a really good job. They used the Robert Zemeckis motion control split screen, where like you put the camera on a dolly that's operated by a computer, so it moves exactly the same way, so you can have two people in the frame like interacting with each other even though they're the same person. Does this make any sense?
Yeah, I can't completely contradict mine, but yeah, there'd be that. Yeah
they use, sorry, go ahead.
No finish.
Yeah, well, so that movie used that, and like every movie does that now. Like the Kaufman movie does that, and they also use CGI and stuff. Like Double Impact uses like 1940s split screen technology, and it's not done well at all. Like there were movies that came out 30, 40 years before that did a better job. And like the movie didn't have a small budget. It was like $15 million in 1991. That wasn't anything to sneeze at. Like whereas Bloodsport, like it's not well shot, but like they made the movie for like $1.50. Like you can kind of understand that.
Double Impact reminded me a lot of so that last week I watched Face Off again.
Oh, great one.
Which does not have like there's no split screen, but they both of them do this thing where you play the a cornball and a libidinal badass.
Yeah. No, I mean that's like the skill of an actor, right? Like being able to, kind of play two roles at once. And like you start off as one guy and then you become the other guy. And I mean, that's like one of the reasons why I think Face Off is so great, because like you see him as like, he's already shown himself to be the villain, Nick Cage, but then like you see like the changes that go on in his face or whatever, and his affect that make him the good guy.
Yeah, it was. The funniest thing is when when he's the good guy. Sorry, I don't know how to explain this. When the good guy is in the bad guy's body for the first time, like women walk up to her and like, "Oh, you raped me last week. That was awesome." And, and he's like, he doesn't know really how to take it. That is kind of funny.
How the other half lives. Another thing we wanted to talk about was, is Van Damme a rambling man? What do we think?
So, this is something that I think you see in a lot of these. So I watch a lot of action movies. The best. Have you guys seen Streets of Fire?
I actually haven't.
It's a great movie. It's really great. I don't even know how to describe it. It's really great. But the director, he imagined it as a, like, one of the things about action movies get sequels. There are 4 Bloodsports. The guy that made Streets of Fire, he imagined it to be like, the next Star Wars, like 6 movies. One of the things about, if your movie is going to have a sequel, you got to break up at the end of the movie. You got to. There's no way to do this. There's no way to maintain a relationship from one movie to the next. Hollywood is going to get rid of any actress you have by the time you get funding and the movie's filmed 3 years later. That woman will not be able. She'll be too old to be in movies. Anymore.
That's not all of that though, but also it's like that's like, especially for the female audience, like the hero earns the love of the protagonist lady is a huge part of it. Like even in movies like now with these shitty Marvel movies where they make 50 billion of them and they're like on contract, like every time if there's like 2 characters who are get together, some contrivance comes up where in the next movie they're mad at each other and they have to do it all over again.
Keeps them working.
Yeah, I mean, because women, like, if a woman tunes in, she wants to. Now I'm gonna get us canceled. Like, she wants the guy to court the woman. Well, if at the end of the movie they're together, like, what's gonna happen? They're just gonna be like a regular couple, and the next one, hell no, they don't want to see that. They want to. So now she's angry at Chris Pratt again for whatever reason.
Yeah. No.
By the way,
absolutely.
I highly recommend Streets of Fire. The cast is outrageous. It's got the bad guy is Willem Dafoe.
Sweet.
I'd watch anything with him. Yeah.
The love interest is Diane Lane. She looks really good in it. Rick Moranis. It's just like it's a crazy good cast. I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Well, in the movie, in Bloodsport, at one point, Jean-Claude Van Damme gambles for the reporter with the Chinese Arabs. Like he gambles away her freedom, right?
Well, yeah, and it goes back to, not even to say something that's so obvious, but it goes back to your basic sort of manosphere PUA stuff. It's like, yeah, women want men who are focused on them and all that, sort of, but then not really. Actually, they want a guy who will neg you a little bit. Has his own, like, it's like women both want to be a guy's priority and not. Like, it's actually attractive that he has his sights set elsewhere. That makes him that much more attractive, that he has to go back to base at the end.
I would say crucially, it's not like for him, and obviously it's an act, it's a movie, but for him in the movie, it's not an act. Like, he's not like gaming her. Like, game didn't really even exist then, and well, it always existed, but that's another story. But like, he like legitimately, like, yeah, he wants to sleep with her, but after he's done, he's got to hang out on the roof and do his stretches and, do his Van Damme time. And then, like, when the movie's over, it's like, yeah, back to base, I gotta go. And like, this reporter is incredibly horny for him. And, to some extent, the fact that he, like, I don't think, and we're getting into like gender theory or whatever here, but I mean, I don't think women want men who actually dislike them necessarily. They more want men who are so high status that they have other stuff they need to do,
exactly.
Like brood on the roof or win kumites.
Well, I mean, so a woman can be highly attracted to you and hate your guts. So
no, that's true. That's true.
That's not a problem. I guess the interesting thing there and the Rambling Man thing there. So the Rambling Man? The Rambling Man loves the woman more than anything. I mean, he just really, really loves you, but he has to ramble. He's got to go. It's time to go. And in Bloodsport we see this fight. So she is a ambitious reporter, and this is a huge scoop. This is like this would be an amazing story to bring back. And she's got the little tape recorder thing. She's getting the story, but then she basically she wants to throw this away. She says she tries to get the kumite stopped because of love, right? Because she loves him too much and she doesn't want to die. This is the Rambling Man thing, is that he loves you, but his purpose comes first. And I think that's always important. And this is something that's big in gender relations, even in politics or whatever, is that like, I always think of Caesar and stuff like that. It's like women like Caesar, but the thing is like he's never going to be yours because of his job is too demanding. So you must, like, if this is what you want, it's like a woman. If you want a guy in a band, you must accept that he's not going to be wrapped around your finger. He's going to be gone on tour and stuff. This kind of thing, and that is the rambling man, is that he has this higher purpose. And women like that. They want to conquer the rambling man. They want to make the rock star stay at home, not go on tour anymore. But the problem is, once they do that, they're not attracted to you.
Loses the appeal.
Yeah,
exactly.
Classic. Tragic, even.
Yes, yeah.
Because you are what you do. You are the reason why she liked you in the first place is because you were the rock star, not because you were just you were a guy that was so awesome that happened to be in a band. So this is why you are not the guy anymore once you're not the rock star.
Yeah, and I mean, not to get too much into the politics of this stuff now, but family formation is something that helps keep people together. So like after a certain point, like if you're a father or whatever, you're not a rock star anymore. And one of the things that keeps your woman from leaving you for another rock star is the fact that she's had your children and is older. And in today's world, well, things are a little bit different.
The ultimate rambling man thing that happens in his movies happened in Kickboxer. And so in the movie, his love interest gets this funny. The Kickboxer is like kind of a funnier movie in the start. Like, it's got more comic relief stuff in it, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a more lighthearted movie. And then like somewhere in the like second act, his love interest gets like brutally sexually assaulted, right? And because of him, like this guy just sexually assaults her just to make him angry, right? So and he finds out about this, and then he beats the guy in the fight in the end, right? Who raped his girlfriend, did all this stuff, and crippled his brother. And so the fight's over, and he runs over to the stands, and like he hugs his brother first, like, okay, it's his brother, he's got his back broken. He goes over and he I think he pats the black guy on the shoulder. He pets the dog, and then he goes and hugs his girlfriend. It's like he made sure to pet the dog first. I was like, that is the most ice cold shit I've ever seen. They might not have done that on purpose. That might have just been like he was writing. It was an oversight. I was like, holy shit, that was brutal.
Van Damme has been reading Heartiste, clearly. Yeah, no, that's a brutal one.
By the way, so more small things from Bloodsport. So E Honda comes from the character that you can tell. I mean, so he does the bear hug. Like the half sumo diaper thing going on. That is where E Honda comes from. Guys, you should take up this thing that Bruce Lee does and Chong Li does in this movie, where this is like an Asian thing. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about here, but I've heard that Asian people, they basically like evacuate their nose in the morning.
That was so weird that Chong Li keeps doing that before fights. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy blowing his nose for?
It feels good. Try it. Everyone, you just expel whatever boogers you have, whenever you're getting hyped, whenever you're working out and stuff. Just do that.
No doubt.
But Bolo's so one thing is clearly, I don't know if you've seen Bolo Young and his other movies, Chong Li in this movie. I mean, he is on a lot of juice in this flick. I mean, he is freaking huge, and he's not that huge in other movies. Maybe that was like toward the tail end of his age, because he does kind of look really old in all the other movies that he's in with Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's on a ton of juice. But his acting was great. His best moment was when Jackson says, "I'm gonna kill you." If you're watching the movie, watch for that scene in particular. His Bolo Young's acting is ridiculously good in that part.
Yeah. By the way, maybe worth plugging. Bloodsport is free on YouTube, so No like weird websites where you have to go and watch the movie free. You don't even have to have any subscriptions. If anyone's listening to this and wants to check it out, you can hop on YouTube and yeah, that's how I watched it. It's kind of
But one more thing that's super important about Bloodsport, Kowloon Walled City. So that the city they go to. So this is so the guy explains it a little bit, but you can barely hear him. So, but basically, England used to own Hong Kong, whatever. But there was a part in between what China owned and what England owned that they got caught up in a paperwork dispute. And so it became like literally the only place in the world that was like, just like no one got neither side was able to claim it. So like that was Kowloon Walled City was a perfectly libertarian place. There was zero government. There was no government.
Oh wow, I didn't even pick up on that. I know that like Kowloon is now like an area in Hong Kong, like Brooklyn or something. But
they talk about the Kumite as being mob run, which probably is part more or less.
But yeah,
that's just part and parcel of that. Yeah,
that's interesting. It was a totally lawless libertarian like area, Kowloon.
Yeah. And so that whole place was where that was at. This is where I don't know how many movies, how much cyberpunk stuff has come from just the couple scenes where he's walking through these dingy halls of Kowloon, because there's no government. There's just sort of like electronic. There's like a power lines just running everywhere. It's totally chaotic. People just build on top of the other house. There's no building permits, obviously. So the Kowloon. Of course, the tragic thing. So Kowloon, it was beautiful. I mean, so in this cyberpunk way, if you have any interest in this, if you like anything that's like cyberpunk or something, I think it's beautiful. It looks really cool. Well, it's gone now. The British demolished it. They left like one little part of it as like a memorial, but that city is completely gone now. There's no city.
I was about to say I have a friend. I visited him a little while ago in Hong Kong. He lives in Kowloon, and like that's like Brooklyn. So, but yeah, no, I mean that's interesting that it was an autonomous zone, as they say.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You were talking about Young being on juice. I just want to from Double Impact. Has there ever been a female bodybuilder that was as attractive as Corey Everson?
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, I mean, that was an interesting, I almost put that in the notes. Like, she is like, she's got to be like 6'1" at least.
She's, buff, but she didn't, like, a lot of those female bodybuilders use so much juice, like they turn into men. But if you watch her in that movie, not the case for her. The frisk me scene was I was surprised. That was an interesting piece of cinema. I wouldn't recommend the movie, but I recommend going on YouTube and looking up that scene.
She's not like there's they have the different categories of women's bodybuilding. There's like fitness where, but she's like she was like jacked. A lot of juice.
She makes it look easy.
Really,
right.
she was. How did she juice? But like her face didn't turn into a man's face.
Okay, if you want to get into it, they have steroids like Anavar and stuff like that don't have so much androgenic effect.
Gotcha, understood.
Well, on that note, I think we probably covered most of everything, and we're coming on about 2 hours and 40 minutes. Maybe it's time to pack it in on the damn good time with the good old boys.
Yeah, one of my notes. The only other thing I had was one of the interesting things that I thought about this movie was Bolo's like he's got this very Chong Li has this very unique fighting style where he looks like he just got out of bed at the very beginning, and he's trying to affect this ultimate casual thing, like I'm not even bothered, this is no sweat at all, and he just did a really good job. It looks really cool.
No, I mean, it's like he's got an amazing kind of like, because he is a real fighter. He has like a real presence in the ring this ramp, whatever they have in the Kumite. And then the same for Van Damme. Like clearly when you put real fighters in the movie, it just, it flows better. And yeah, maybe
No,
we'll
for sure.
we'll turn off the recording, I guess, unless you guys have any more to add.
No.
No, we should chill one more time. So patreon.com.
Oh yeah. Let's get this
For
in.
sure. Yeah.
Good old boys. Yeah.
With a Z.
Yeah. GODOLBOYZ. That's it.
And you guys are on Twitch too, of course.
Yeah. Our stuff is we record once a week on Twitch. The stuff is not always up there, but with that stuff always ends up on the Patreon. So yeah.
Gotcha. And so do you actually, I was going to ask this earlier, do you guys actually game on Twitch? Forgive my relative lack of familiarity with you compared to Dan, but do you guys actually, I know we talked about being accused of being gamers. Is there any gaming element to any of what you do?
Not yet. We have a plan. We're gonna do like board games and stuff, but nothing like you would normally.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. Just wanted to.
I played the NBA
Awesome.
game on the stream a couple times, but like not a lot of overlap between political podcast listeners and watching people play NBA 2K.
You never know. I mean, we talked about the NBA a couple times on this, so you never know. The connections can be out there. They can be.
Speaking of which, if you guys got a lot of pull in the right wing community, get to Second City Bureaucrat to fight me in Street Fighter.
Hell yes. I want to see this.
He claims to be good. I will whoop his ass. So
all right, well, let's.
Yeah.
I don't personally know City Bureaucrat, but like maybe some of our
Sure,
listeners
we know people who know.
We definitely know people who do. We definitely have listeners who do. So, listeners, let's make it happen.
Let's do this showdown.
or just take note that he's ducking, dodging, and just generally afraid to step in the ring with.
Second City, you gotta step up. And,
Bloodsport for the podcast crew.
No, I just want to say that, thanks again for coming on. And just, personally, I listen to you guys like twice a week. One of my favorite podcasts. Like I legitimately, when I want to know like what people think of the news, like I listen to you guys. I listen to Tinkzorg. I listen to Fredo. And like, this is a valuable follow. So like you guys should listen to the good old boys.
Yeah. That's seconded and absolutely appreciate you guys coming on. That's
all we care about. So, a lot of other shows are like trying to like convince you of things. We have political ideas, of course, but we have plenty of people listen that don't agree with us. And I think most important, like I think you'll be entertained. Bare minimum.
Yeah. Oh, and also these guys, like you have like all sorts of guests on who are like, across the spectrum, across not like the autism, across the, like you have Nagel, you have Yarvin, you have, professors who are like very interesting, like Badia and, the Profilicity guy. I loved his stuff.
That guy's a genius.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, though the one thing I have to ask, when is this Boss Tweet episode coming? Sorry guys.
No, we need that. We need that. Like I have it written. We need to record that.
He has a very ambitious idea for an episode. It's going to be different than anything we've ever done, so that's why it's taking so long to cook it up.
Is it going to be choose your own adventure? On Twitch, people get to chime in and be like, "Oh, well, if you did this, what would have happened?"
I don't like. I mean, I'm genuinely like. The thing is, like, this is one of the things that sort of brought this to, because I talk about it all the time. That like, I strongly, I feel very strongly about this person. I think other people would if they saw it through the things that I did. The same thing with Caesar. I think I think he's got
hero worship.
He's got a very compelling story that's just never presented. That none of these books, they just I bought 3 books about him, and they just blow past the entire part of his life that's so interesting, and that's the part I want to bring. And yeah,
looking forward to it.